Chapter 589. Such a secretive setting isn't any weaker than the other night orders. With the intersection where Han Dong was at as the corner of the cube, the surrounding streets were folded in space. Finally, it was folded into a cube space. The dark gray building where the secret word nights were located happened to be at the top of the cube. The dark gray building that was originally inverted also returned to normal because of this. Unlike the situation in Inception, the direction of gravity here would not change because of stepping on the wall. At the same time, flying was completely prohibited. Han Dong needed to climb to the first floor door of the gray building. With the help of the G-virus, sticky fleshy tissues shot out from his left and right hands and quickly climbed to the first floor of the gray building. Using his left hand, he hung his body at the main entrance of the first floor. Ring, ring, ring. He rang the doorbell. Not long after, light footsteps came from inside. The person who opened the door was a bald young man with a pen hanging from the corner of his mouth. His collar was stained with ink, and he had serious dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he had worked overtime for more than 10 days and was severely sleep-deprived. The young man did not care about his image at all. "You're the second newcomer, right? What time is it now? You only came to report. Sorry, I was delayed by something. Go directly to the commander. I don't have time to lead the way for you now. You only need to walk in a straight line. Don't take any left or right forks to find the commander. I heard that you caused quite a commotion at the meeting. You should be able to find the commander's office on your own. You only need to remember the keyword straight line. Once you mix into left or right, you may be lost forever. Thank you, senior. Don't say thank you verbally. Hurry up and join us. Help us share some of the work." After the transmission, the knight seemed to be walking slowly. However, every time Han Dong blinked, he would teleport a certain distance and soon disappear. Walk straight down. The passage in front of Han Dong was covered with a red carpet. It was only 20 meters long. There were only 2 paths at the end to choose from, left and right. However, there was a portrait of a man hanging on the wall at the end. The man's eyes seemed to have something else. This is the Penrose Stairs. The central library of the library has such a structure. In the man's eyes, there was a simple 4-sided staircase of Penrose, as if there was a special meaning that he wanted to convey through the image in his eyes. There was nothing strange about the painting itself, nor was there any mechanism set up. No matter how Han Dong fiddled with it, there was only a wall in front of him. From the door to the portrait, it's only a 20-meter-long passage. It's like you can only walk in a straight line. The problem was space. The headquarters of the Secret Word Knights was located in a folded space. It was reasonable for the space inside the building to be more complicated. The eye was a reverse image. The Penrose staircase was a cycle. Combined with the structure of the gray building itself, the so-called linear space problem should be. Han Dong turned around and walked back to the entrance. Then, he turned around and walked back to the portrait at the end. Just like that, the cycle repeated 4 times. Han Dong's guess was very simple. Every time he walked back and forth in the corridor, it was equivalent to going up 1 floor in the gray building. From the outside, the gray building had a total of 5 floors. Therefore, a total of 4 trips was equivalent to reaching the top floor of the building, which was also Captain Hugo's office. Should be right. After going back and forth 4 times, Han Dong returned to the entrance again. He reached out and turned the cold doorknob. In front of him was Captain Hugo's office. It was also the most mysterious office in the Holy City. Its secrecy and the confidential documents it contained were comparable to the deepest archives of the Parliament. Excluding the communication time, the net time spent was 1 minute and 53 seconds. It's a pity that you're 2 seconds slower than Charlie. Otherwise, you would have broken the record. Charlie LeBlanc Bermanchev, the Secret Word Knight who easily defeated the Hell Kid in the night conference. Like Han Dong, he was a master of mysticism and a master of puppet stitching. He was the first person in the election 10 years ago. Unlike Han Dong, he was not the only one. Back then, Charlie had won first place in a crushing manner. "I'm sorry, Captain Hugo. I wasted a lot of time outside the city. I made you wait. It's fine as long as you're here today. This is a rookie handbook for the Secret Word Knights. You have 1 day to finish reading it. The headquarters of the Secret Word Knights has another name, the Secret Library. All the confidential files in the Holy City, 80% of the original manuscripts, and a large number of backup documents are stored here. Therefore, such complicated spatial means are needed to ensure the confidentiality and safety of every archive room. The confidential files are only handed over to us for convenience by the Supreme Council. Our real tasks are mainly divided into 2 aspects. 1. Decipher the hybrid demon slate. 2. Guard the foreign objects. Because the Great Expedition is coming, the task of deciphering the hybrid demon slate is very important. At the same time, we also need to organize and gather a large number of confidential documents and strictly select the knights who can go on the expedition and the knights who stay behind. At present, you've just joined the group and only understood the question of up and down in the secret library. The question of left and right is 100 times, 1,000 times more complicated. You need to use the rookie handbook to slowly familiarize yourself with the structure of the secret library. You need to be able to reach the corresponding archive room within a minute. At the same time, you also need to understand the most basic classification system in the secret library. You need to understand the areas that people of different levels can enter and the confidential files and foreign objects that people of different levels can come into contact with. Okay, Han Dong didn't find it cumbersome at all. Instead, he found it rather interesting. This was the place that he wanted to come to. Even without Captain Hugo's help, Han Dong might have chosen this place. Captain Hugo pointed at the documents on the table that were half a meter thick. For the rest of the day, in addition to learning the rookie handbook, you also need to review these investigation reports given by the Night Squad after they conducted investigations outside the city 30 to 35 years ago. Write down the contents of the reports and the names of the suspicious knights in the notebook. Write down a short inference. At the same time, you need to attach the reference number of the document, as well as the specific number of pages and lines. Yes, also, this is your office key. When you're done with these things and have finished reading the rookie handbook, come find me. At that time, we'll talk about the female corpse that the counselor gave you. Okay, when talking about the female corpse, Han Dong was slightly shocked. However, with Captain Hugo's help, he might be able to make use of the female corpse to the greatest extent. At that time, I also want to talk to Captain about the matter of true fate. Do everything I say within 24 hours and meet the standards, then I'll talk to you. No problem. Chapter 590. Newcomer's Handbook, Secret Word Knights, Special Edition. The Secret Word Knights were a special reserve force among the 13 knights. They rarely went out of the city to investigate and rarely participated in expedition activities. They only secretly provided information and guarded dangerous secrets. The headquarters of the Secret Word Knights was also known as the Secret Museum. According to the different work directions, the Secret Word Knights were generally divided into 2 types: frowny-face secret keeper and secret dispeller. In the early stages of joining the Knights, the newcomers would only be required to deal with some public or confidential documents. After working for a period of time, the department head would assign the newcomers to different work directions based on the relevant inferences given during the review of documents. 1. Secret Museum Space. The Secret Museum was divided into up and down and left and right through spatial rearrangement. The rules of up and down were relatively simple and were omitted here. The design and construction of left and right used the variable function cycle structure. Every half an hour, the left and right space would undergo irregular changes. The numbers for reference were hidden in the paintings hanging in the passage. The number inside the painting represented the variable x. The corresponding function structure at different times of the month was as follows: f x equals y. Please imagine the detailed function structure. It changes every half an hour, a total of 48 functions. Every month, new functions would be used to replace the old ones. Therefore, the number of the rooms in the secret museum would be represented by L floor, Y dependent variable, room number. When y equals 0, it was the initial staircase passage. Note, in order to ensure confidentiality, there are hidden variables and multiple function relationships that are not directly shown in the handbook. Please deduce by yourself. 2. Staff level and corresponding secret zone. The 5 positions were as follows. Level 1, white. Only allowed to come into contact with and deal with general public and confidential documents. Usually, newcomers who had just joined the Knights. Level 2, gray. Allowed to deal with confidential documents. Able to indirectly come into contact with foreign objects or help decipher some simple text through the stone slab. Usually, they were secret keeper or secret dispeller who had just been classified. Level 3, blue. With the permission of the council, they were allowed to deal with top-secret documents. At the same time, they could officially come into contact with foreign objects that were less dangerous and participate in the deciphering of hybrid demon stone slabs as an ordinary member of the team. Level 4, red. Can directly deal with top-secret and below documents. You are allowed to enter the black zone to participate. Come into contact with, manage, and suppress foreign objects that are in an unstable state or decipher some hybrid demon tablets that may induce instant corruption. Level V, black. Enjoy the right to move without any restrictions. Their actions are directly approved by the Senate. The Secret Words Knights will evaluate the performance of knights of different ranks every month. Those who fail will be demoted or kicked out of the Secret Words Knights. Those who pass will remain in their ranks, but those who perform well will be given bonus points. When the score reaches the next level, the permission level will be automatically upgraded. Note, before reaching level 3, it still needs to undergo a security review from the Parliament. There were also a lot of things to take note of inside the secret museum, as well as measures to deal with emergencies. The detailed information about the foreign object and the slate was not mentioned in the newcomer's handbook. He needed to wait until Han Dong finished the basic work and officially became a mystery keeper or mystery solver before he could learn more about it. In order to avoid affecting work efficiency and the flow of confidential information, even the lowest level secret word knight had their own independent office in the secret library. On the key that Captain Hugo passed to Han Dong, there was a serial number written on it. First, he returned to the first floor through up and down. Han Dong then used the corresponding function given in the handbook to match the current time period to deduce. During his first exploration of left and left, he also discovered that there was a problem with the paintings in the passage. Under certain circumstances, he needed to deduce the number of independent variables through the contents of the paintings. At the same time, there were also problems that were not explained in the handbook when he made the left and right choices. As a result, Han Dong spent a long time at a certain node. It took him 1.5 hours to discover the related rules of the left and right increment and matrix changes. Han Dong was quite good at such nonlinear mathematical problems in university. This way, Han Dong completely understood the problem of left and right in the secret library. He was able to do what Commander Hugo had requested, which was to reach any room in the secret library with a serial number within 10 minutes. Of course, when Han Dong was exploring the left and right side of the corridor, he discovered that some of the walls were marked with gray and blue lines. A newcomer like Han Dong did not have the right to enter such a restricted area. Is this my office? It was a small enclosed room of 10 square meters. There was only a small window that looked out at the folded street outside. A miniature fireplace was attached to the wall for heating. Coffee beans and a self-made grinder were placed on the desk. There is unlimited access to coffee beans to ensure efficiency during office hours. The base of the kerosene lamp could be inserted into the corner of the desk. There was a kerosene supply poured inside, which could also provide unlimited light. Other than the desk and chairs, the only furniture left in the room was a bed. Moreover, there was a crazy iron notice hanging at the head of the bed. Before you sleep, please think about whether you have completed all your work today seriously. As expected, it is an oppressive management style. It should be due to the lack of manpower. Knights who could successfully graduate from the Knight Academy all had the desire to go outside the city and fight the hybrid demons. Very few people would choose to join such a clerical night group. Moreover, the overall score of Secret Whispers Night Group was the lowest among the 13 night groups. As a result, the number of graduates who joined each year was very low. Some knights who could not handle it would even choose to leave the group during their internship. As a result, the night group did not have enough manpower and had a lot of work to do. Only through the high-intensity work of 996 could it be possible to complete the work given by the Holy City on time. However, the document processing was only the surface work of the Secret Whispers Night Group. From what I know, this place is more interesting than any other night group. Han Dong, who was still energetic, placed the half-meter thick document on the desk, lit the kerosene, and started his first work. There was no need for coffee. Once Han Dong came into contact with this kind of document, he would immediately enter a unique reading mode. On his left hand was the document he needed to read. On his right hand was a pen and a Secret Whispers notebook. The first time he read it, he would make notes on the document and write down a rough guess. When he read it carefully for the second time, he would analyze and deduce these suspicious points in detail. Han Dong had to finish his current work within a day and talk to Captain Hugo about true fate. Chapter 591. These documents from the investigation outside the city are so highly falsified. Even if it was just a quick read, Han Dong could see a lot of problems. It could even be said that every report had a certain amount of problems. When these night squads returned to the city to report the results of their investigation, they deliberately changed some details to hide the truth. Most of the night squads would have a certain amount of hair on the results of their investigation outside the city. At the same time, Han Dong also found a few noteworthy big problems in the process of his examination. For example, one of the night squads died during their investigation outside the city. The content of the surviving member's oral narration was not very reasonable, and there was an obvious contradiction between the two statements. Han Dong suspected that the death of the knight was related to their teammate. After a rough examination, Han Dong classified the problems into 3 categories. There are some small problems worth investigating, serious falsification. Then he wrote down his deductions in a very strict manner in the notebook. After each deduction, he gave the corresponding page number and paragraph position of the deduction, just like a reference document. After spending a total of 13 hours, he finally returned a notebook to Captain Hugo's hands with clear and neat handwriting. I didn't expect you to be able to produce a work report of this quality within a day. Actually, I didn't plan to talk to you about true fate so early. After all, you will delay a lot of work time in the realm of fate. How about this? Hugo pointed at the pile of documents in the corner of the office that was 5 times the previous amount. If you can finish reviewing these documents within a week, I will let you advance in advance. You can choose to become a secret keeper or secret dispeller. At that time, you will be equivalent to an official employee of the secret library, and you can use your annual leave to participate in the events of true fate. No problem. Han Dong stared at the mountain of documents, but he did not feel a chill in his head, nor did he feel uncomfortable. Instead, his eyes revealed that he liked this kind of work. It was the first time Captain Hugo saw such a strange talent, and he was very glad that he recruited Han Dong into his night squad. Before you continue with your work, come with me. As I said before, I need to talk to you about the female corpse. I have already ordered the staff to transport the female corpse from the Great Graveyard to the temporary foreign object containment room. All right. The female corpse matched the attributes of Han Dong's left arm. To a large extent, Captain Hugo had purposely arranged for the female corpse to appear during the night selection as a gift for Han Dong. 02913 Commander Hugo had only given the serial number and deliberately allowed Han Dong to lead the way. He wanted to see if Han Dong had completely understood the rookie handbook. In less than 5 minutes, Han Dong was standing at the entrance of a passage with a gray sign that restricted entry for Class 2 and above. Due to Commander Hugo's temporary authorization, Han Dong was granted a one-time access right. After the identity verification, The hydraulic door of the temporary foreign object storage room slowly opened. The inside of the containment room was actually matched with the female corpse's attribute, yellow sand chamber. Since you've chosen my order of knights, I'll be frank with you. You seem to have the ability to graft bodies. As far as I can see, even if your disguise is quite superb, the deformed right arm can be regarded as the result of epidemiology. The ancient corpse's left arm can be regarded as a side effect of practicing yellow sand magic. But from the age of the left arm, it definitely came from another life form. According to the investigation data, you seem to have used Mr. Black and White's name to purchase an arm for a period of time. Yes, then there's no problem. Hugo only confirmed that Han Dong had the grafting ability and did not ask about the origin of this ability at all. The female corpse is taken from the final boss in the new mummy, Princess Armanet. It's definitely not something you can fully control at your current stage. You know this very well. The reason why the female corpse is assigned to you is because the arm of the high priest or this ancient Egyptian princess that you've grafted has a common characteristic that is very important to the order of knights of the secret word, ancient. This characteristic will be beneficial to the deciphering of the slate. As early as 4 million years ago in the late Paleolithic age, slate writing already appeared. Primitive people began to use slate to record what happened around them. And in these slate writings that were buried deep underground by our ancestors, there are records about the hybrid demons and even the most fundamental question of their origin. Whether it's the origin of mankind or the origin of the hybrid demons, you can find the answer from these slate writings. Commander Hugo's words suddenly shocked Han Dong. Han Dong had always thought that in the world he was reborn in, the hybrid demons outside the city were a kind of advanced life form that was more perfect than humans, and that they were born due to some kind of opportunity in the First Time War. He did not expect that there were records about the hybrid demons in the Stone Age, as if they were an intelligent life form that came to Earth earlier than humans. Back to the topic, the specific problem of the slate writings will have to wait until you officially become the mystery solver to understand further. Now let's talk about the female corpse. How do you plan to use it? By absorbing and fusing it to enhance your left arm? Or do you want to combine the female corpse with your ungrafted torso and legs? Commander, the grafting itself is limited. It can't be connected between the opposite sex? No. It's the most basic weight-bearing problem. The level of the female corpse is very high, so I can't access it at the moment. I can only consider the first method, which is to slowly absorb the essence of the female corpse and use it to enhance the level of my left arm. My left arm was also taken from the high priest, Imhotep, in the mummy incident, and it's not any worse than this Egyptian princess. Commander Hugo said with some mischievousness, "Actually, I'd like to see what kind of changes will happen if you directly graft the body of the female corpse." Han Dong laughed awkwardly. "Haha, Commander Hugo, don't joke around. I have my own ideas about the torso problem. Also, I don't have much weight-bearing left, so I have to consider the grafting of the torso. Let's leave the female corpse here for now, and wait for me to further enhance myself before fusing and upgrading. Thank you for your concern, Commander." Okay. After the short conversation ended, Commander Hugo looked at Han Dong with admiration. At the same time, he packed up all the documents in the office and handed them over to Han Dong for review. An hour later, Commander Hugo, who had put aside all his work and was able to soak in a high-end hot spring, muttered to himself, "Super efficient document processing ability, grafting creatures of destiny, and a magic eye that can recognize words outside the city. This year's Best Employee Award will definitely be him. I hope that before the great expedition arrives, I can use this kid's uniqueness to make a breakthrough in the research of the slate. At the very least, I have to decipher the information about the king in the slate." Chapter 592. A week passed by. Han Dong wasted 2 pens and carried 4 notebooks full of writing to Captain Hugo's office. Seeing such a workload, the first thing Hugo did was to check the amount of hair on Han Dong's body. He found that there was no sign of balding, and his eyes were not dull. Actually, This seemingly complicated work was not as tiring as the last month when Han Dong was writing his doctoral thesis. At least this kind of written information only required normal reasoning. Compared to the doctoral thesis, it was not that difficult. It was just that the workload was heavier. Captain Hugo was shocked, but he also took out 2 gray badges that represented Class 2 personnel and replaced a normal badge on Han Dong's body that was provided by the Knight's headquarters. One of the gray badges had a question mark on it. It represented Secret Keeper. The other one had a magnifying glass on it. It represented Secret Dissolver. Just like that, there's no need for a special award or a promotion ceremony. Everyone is very busy. Who has time to do these meaningless ceremonies? Let me explain it to you. Although Secret Keeper and Secret Dissolver are mainly responsible for different tasks, they are not prohibited from interacting. Under special circumstances, no matter if it is a slate or a foreign object, they may need your help to deal with it. Actually, Captain Hugo had already hinted to Han Dong to join the deciphering team for the hybrid demon slate. Just when Han Dong reached out to take the Secret Dissolver badge, Hugo also handed over a recommendation letter. If you want to participate in the real fate as a knight, you must have a recommendation letter from a vice captain or above. Take the recommendation letter and go to the Knight headquarters to do a series of registration. The Knight headquarters will review it and arrange for you to form a group with other individuals or small groups of knights. Together, you will enter the real fate space. If you have your own group to register with, it will naturally be better. Thank you, Captain Hugo. But isn't a week too short? Up to you. With your work efficiency, I can give you more time, as long as you come back and finish the work that you have accumulated there. Okay, just when Han Dong took the recommendation letter and was about to leave, Captain Hugo added, "That's right. This is your first time participating in true fate. Normally speaking, a new knight would need at least a year or more to undergo special knight training in order to stabilize their newly formed talent tree. Only those who performed outstandingly and passed the test would be recognized by the leader and receive a recommendation letter. True fate is much more difficult than the space of fate that you novice knights have experienced. There are many uncertainties within it. The captains didn't want the newbies they had just recruited to be gone just like that. I believe in your strength, but based on the many conversations I've had with you, you seem to be particularly anxious. It seemed that there was also a foreshadowing of fate that had been planted in advance during the apprentice knight stage. The destiny realm you are about to enter should be a chain of events. If you are too anxious, even you will be in danger. Thank you for your concern. I will slow down. If you die, my job here will be in trouble. If your friends haven't gotten the recommendation letters yet, I suggest you go to the Night Watcher headquarters before you register. You might find something unexpected there. Thank you." We stepped out of the secret pavilion. Han Dong went directly to the mailbox at the crossroad. Because he had been working in a closed area for a long time, the moment he breathed in the fresh air, his tired brain became much more awake. This feeling is similar to when I was studying for a degree. Not bad. Since I have been promoted to mystery solver, when I come back from the space of fate, I will be able to come in contact with the more interesting hybrid demon slate. Phew! Let's put these things aside for now. The most important thing now is the matter at hand. Han Dong immediately contacted his former comrades through the clockwork device. Just as Hugo had said, it was difficult for a new knight to get a recommendation letter in a short period of time, no matter how good their performance in the night conference was. Captain Keeman had seen Abel's shortcomings in the competition. Moreover, Abel was being jointly trained by Olivia. He needed to wait until Abel could completely control the beast in his body before he could get a recommendation letter. As for Demps, he directly rejected Han Dong's invitation. It seemed that he had discovered a new world in the Knights of Misfortune. He was working hard to study the demon's techniques and was not ready to face the real fate. Mia did not need to be mentioned. She had just stabilized her insect state outside the city. She had not even spent a day in the Knights of Misfortune. She could not get a recommendation letter at all. Wen Li, who had poor basic skills, was undergoing special training in the Knights of Hell. Han Dong did not send a message to her. However, There was one person who responded to Han Dong. When are you going to submit the recommendation letter? I may need a day to submit the request to the captain. Okay, I'm going to the Night Watcher headquarters in advance. Contact me after you're done with the recommendation letter. Okay. Speaking of which, don't tell me you want to end that thing. We'll talk about it when the time comes. The communication was cut off. Han Dong contacted his first friend in the Holy City, Cass Maldini, who had broken his seed and formed the talent tree, Overlord, and joined the Lionheart Knights. It seemed that Cass had not appeared for a long time. Since Captain Hugo had specifically mentioned the Night Watcher headquarters, Han Dong naturally had to make a trip there. Moreover, after Han Dong became an official knight, he should have reported with the Night Watcher medal he had previously obtained. He returned to the underground area. As the city had been fully open to the public for some time, the flow of people in the underground area had increased. Most people covered their faces with hoods and restrained their aura to prevent unnecessary trouble. The Night Watcher headquarters, built in the middle of the street, was easy to find. In front of the headquarters building, which was mainly black, there was also a lot of traffic. Many people could not help but stop in front of a special statue when they passed by the headquarters. There stood a middle-aged man wearing a round hat, a spiked cloak, and a holy water potion at his belt. He wore a pair of leather spiked shoes under his leather pants. His eyes were like an eagle's. He held a silver sword in one hand and a torch in the other. At the bottom of the statue was the person's name and title: Ryan Haas Gerard, first-generation Night Watcher, third chief commander of the Black Rose Knights. Just as Han Dong stared at the statue that emitted a heavy aura, a familiar female voice was heard from not far away. "What are you doing here?" Han Dong turned his head and saw that it was the girl he had faced in the finals of the knighthood tournament, Diana Epsilon. "I'm here to report." Han Dong immediately showed the Night Watcher medal in his hand. Diana, who was staring at the medal, seemed to recall Captain Coden's words. Some strange emotions flashed in her eyes. "Come with me." Chapter 593. Night Watchers. They were a special group that was independent of the Knights. They were also a type of investigator. The way they were recruited was also different from ordinary investigators. The headquarters of the Night Watchers would not openly hold recruitment meetings. The qualifications of the Night Watchers were often mixed in with some small matters. For example, when Han Dong participated in the night training at Stewart Manor, because he went out at night, he accidentally came into contact with a special Night Watcher. Due to his unique observation skills, he triggered a highly difficult Night Watcher mission. After completing it, he would receive the Night Watcher medal and obtain the opportunity to become an official Night Watcher. When he became an official knight, he could report to the headquarters of the Night Watchers. There were also some opportunities hidden in the Adventurers Guild's bounty missions. Some missions involved the secret matters of the Night Watchers. If the executor could notice the hidden situation outside of the mission when completing the bounty mission, it was possible to activate the entry mission of the Night Watchers. Once completed, one could also receive a medal. Even knights who could not sleep every night due to insomnia could go out of the Night Academy to stroll around and observe some abnormalities in the streets and investigate in depth. They could also receive a medal. In short, from the perspective of obtaining the qualifications, the basic element of the Night Watcher's assessment was insight. One must have the unique insight to jump out of the current situation to obtain the qualifications. At the same time, due to the high difficulty of the entry mission, one's strength must also meet the requirements. Han Dong did not expect to meet this female knight in the same batch when he came to the underground area to register, because of Captain Hugo's reminder. Han Dong had a particularly deep impression of Diana. Not only did she have Asian features, but more importantly, this girl was more like a high school student. She should be the youngest in this year's Knight Assembly. She was also a special graduate under Captain Coden. If he did not participate in the election with injuries, Han Dong would definitely have lost. Her potential was amazing. "Are the injuries on your body better?" Diana did not answer Han Dong's question at all, although seeing such an Asian girl made Han Dong feel an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Since she did not want to talk to him, Han Dong did not ask anymore. When Diana led Han Dong into the headquarters building, the guards at the door directly let them in. Uncle Marklon, he's here to register with the Night Watchman medal. A man with graying sideburns, copper-framed glasses, and black formal attire was standing at the reception desk in the hall. When he raised his head to look at Han Dong, he quickly recognized him as the champion who shone brilliantly in the night tournament. At the same time, he also remembered some of the special instructions of his commander. If Warren Nicholas reports for duty and goes straight to the chief commander, you can take him there directly. Upon hearing that Han Dong had such special treatment, Diana seemed to be a little jealous and pouted slightly. However, he still quickly led Han Dong to the elevator on the other side. The headquarters of the Night Watchers was far less complicated than the secret museum. After all, if any unidentified person broke in without permission, they would be immediately obliterated. The underground area was not restricted by the Holy City, let alone the headquarters of such an organization. Knight Macron, who was in charge of receiving guests at the round table in the hall, was an elite knight commander second only to a corporal. His subordinates had killed more than 100 of his own kind. On the top floor, he knocked on the wooden door with the black rose printed on it. "Come in, Diana." There were a few bouquets of roses in a glass vase at the corner of the black spotted marble desk. There was a pot of green tea on the desk, and some documents were stacked on the side. Commander Coden, who was wearing a black vest and a white shirt, was sitting at the desk. If one were to compare his looks, Commander Coden was definitely the most handsome male commander. He had perfect body proportions and body fat percentage. He had some masculine stubble and a sexy Adam's apple, coupled with his deep eyes and slightly protruding cheekbones. Even if he didn't have the title of captain, this kind of uncle would still have a 100% chance of attracting attention on the streets. However, what caught Han Dong's attention the most was on both sides of the walls of the office, there were calligraphy and paintings written by Commander Coden himself. The calligraphy was Chinese, and it was written in a very standard script. "Heaven rewards the diligent. Heart as still as water." Han Dong temporarily suppressed his curiosity and quickly lowered his head. "Commander Coden, Uncle Coden." The way they addressed each other was completely different. Just from the way Diana addressed him, she seemed to be related to Commander Coden. "You chose to join the Secret Word Knights, and you still have time to report to me. It seems like Commander Hugo treats you quite well." "Commander Coden, you specifically asked Diana to pass a message about the Night Watchers during the meeting. Of course I have to come." At this moment, Diana suddenly interrupted. "Uncle, if there's nothing else, I'll go back to training." "No rush." "Yes." Diana seemed to have sensed the seriousness in the air. She immediately lowered her head and did not dare to say another word. "Please take a seat." Just as I asked Diana to pass the message during the meeting, I used the Vaughn siblings to test her attitude. Once again, I've confirmed that you have the qualifications to become a Night Watcher. Together with the medal you received during your apprentice night level, you only need to sign the relevant agreement to become a Night Watcher. You can also accept special missions related to the Night Watchers from the Adventurers Guild and conduct investigations outside the city as a Night Watcher. However, I have a small request. Please speak, Commander Coden. I request that when you carry out a Night Watcher mission, you must form a small team with Diana. Even a small team of 2 is fine. Okay. Diana, who was standing at the side, had a complicated expression in her eyes. She wanted to refute Coden's request, but she was suppressed by Coden's terrifying gaze. Han Dong immediately explained his intentions, but I might not carry out any missions in the near future. This time, I'm just here to report. In the near future, I will be going to the real Destiny realm. Han Dong went straight to the point and took out the letter of recommendation. Commander Hugo allowed you to face true destiny so early? It's my own request. In the Destiny realm, I have something to settle, so I might have to wait until I return from the Destiny realm before I take the time to carry out the Night Watcher mission. That's not a problem. Being a Night Watcher is just an identity. There is no mandatory requirement for the number of missions. Speaking of which, have you found a teammate for True Destiny? For now, I only found a tank-type teammate. Commander Coden pondered for a moment. He took out the letter of recommendation from the drawer and quickly added his name and stamped it. He threw the letter to Diana, who was in a daze. Diana, you and Nicholas will form a small team and head to the Destiny Realm together. Uncle, didn't you say that the Destiny Realm is extremely difficult? Suddenly, Coden glared at Diana, and she quickly nodded. Oh, I understand. Commander Coden tilted his head and looked at Han Dong. Nicholas, you just need to sign the Night Watcher's confidentiality agreement. When the time comes, you and Diana can register as a Night Watcher in Destiny. You will have priority. Okay, when the meeting was about to end, Han Dong asked out of curiosity, Commander Coden, have you been to Dragon City before? Chapter 594, Dragon City. Han Dong had always kept this matter in mind. When he was reborn, Han Dong learned from books that the awakening of higher life forms had pushed humans to the brink of extinction. Only 1% of humans had survived. There were only 3 known large human strongholds. Holy City, Neothanar, translated as Eternal City. Coordinates, Itaros. Dragon City, Imperial Capital. Coordinates, Kyushu. Wangdu, Megalanri, translated as City of Machinery. Coordinates, Sam. The paintings, green tea, and Diana's appearance in Leader Coden's office were all related to Han Dong's motherland. In his rebirth, it corresponded to Dragon City. Leader Coden, have you been to Dragon City? These paintings and the tea in your cup seem to belong to Dragon City. When Han Dong asked this question, Diana was also stunned. This question seemed to have touched her heart. Leader Coden gave a simple answer. There was once a martial artist who was banished by Dragon City. He traveled all the way to Holy City. Unfortunately, he didn't survive. The things he brought with him were also very interesting. The tea could calm one's mind, and the paintings could improve one's swordsmanship. Banished martial artist? He came to Itaros alone, from Kyushu. This was not a peaceful era. Such a long distance was not something an ordinary person could cross. Even a leader's life might be in danger. If he stepped into the old king's stronghold on the way, it would be no laughing matter. Because he violated the highest order of Dragon City, he had already given up on living. He went to Holy City with only one purpose, to let his descendants live. Han Dong couldn't help but glance at Diana beside him. Now, the origin of Diana, who had the blood of Dragon City flowing in her veins, was very clear. Immediately after, Han Dong signed the relevant confidentiality agreement in Leader Coden's office. He had officially become a Night Watchman. Under special circumstances, he could show the Night Watchman's badge and accept special Night Watch missions or interspecial occasions. However, if he wanted to know more about the promotion rules of the Night Watchers, he would have to wait until Han Dong completed a Night Watcher mission. Nicholas, did Captain Hugo or Mr. Black and White explain to you the basics of true fate? Well, not yet. Ink is still needed one more day to obtain the recommendation letter. Han Dong had originally planned to go to the stargazing room, or find Dimpus, who seemed to know everything, to ask him about things he needed to pay attention to in regards to true fate. Since Diana is going to team up with you, call your Meat Shield teammate over as well. I will briefly explain the things you need to pay attention to in true fate. This is the first time you've entered the Destiny realm after breaking the seed. If you don't understand the details, you might end up in the abyss of death. Thank you, Commander Coden. Han Dong could tell that Commander Coden was being so considerate, not because of Han Dong, but because Diana would be involved. In less than 15 minutes, Cass Maldini arrived. Blonde hair and silver armor. Handsome and bright, coupled with a huge heraldic shield and lionheart pauldrons, he gave off a very reliable feeling. Due to his overlord status, Cass was also constantly emitting a team-type aura, heavy rock aura. It could increase the defense of the team members. The fewer members in the team, the greater the effect. Cass would also take a portion of the physical damage received by the team. Not bad, Lionheart Knight. Commander Coden praised Han Dong's choice. Nicholas, it's been a while. Although Cass wanted to put his arm on Han Dong's shoulder, it did not seem appropriate in the current situation. Commander Coden stared at the three people in front of him and felt that something was missing. Do you need me to use my connections to get you a healer? Perhaps a four-man team would be more stable? I'll be in charge of providing healing and long-range support. The true fate that I'm about to choose belongs to the second half of the Chain Fate event. In that scenario, having more people might not be a good thing. Chain Fate event? No wonder you're in such a hurry. If you can complete it, you'll receive a very valuable reward. Commander Coden was even more determined to let Diana participate in the Chain Fate event. Chain Fate events were very rare. Once Diana passed it, she would also receive a lot of rewards and growth. Since it's a Chain Fate event, there's a need to talk to you about the things you need to pay attention to in the True Fate event. The three of them focused their attention. This was the experience of the famous Night Watcher Commander Coden of the Black Rose Knights. Normal people would not be able to hear it. When an official knight enters the realm of fate, all kinds of auxiliary functions will be removed. The realm of fate will be more realistic, and the realm of fate will be larger in scale. Hence, it's called True Fate. Once you pass the realm of fate, you'll receive the extremely important True Fate points to nourish and strengthen your talent tree. However, many people who successfully passed the Realm of Fate event during the seed stage died after becoming an official knight. It was not because they were weak. It was because they lacked a certain survival factor. The Holy City has a rule that knights who want to enter the True Fate event must receive a recommendation letter, personally written by the vice commander or the commander. This was also the reason, based on this year's night conference, only 2 people have such a survival factor. One is you. The other is the little magician in the library. This is also one of the reasons why I'm willing to let Diana follow you to face the True Fate event. Commander Coden paused for a while, sipped his tea to moisten his throat, and continued. The difference between the True Fate event and the Fate event that you've experienced is that other than the larger Realm of Fate event, there are more plots, more main quests, and different factions to choose from. The most important difference is the multi-party mode. In the True Fate event, other than you, there will be other small parties that will enter from other entrances. They will fight against the monsters and fight for the treasure of fate with you. The number of small parties is related to the scale of the event. Multi-party mode, at that moment, Han Dong understood what Coden meant by survival factor. What you need to enter is not a random event, but a predetermined chain of events. You might need to spend a long time queuing. The system will try to match parties with similar strength to enter the same realm of fate. Since that's the case, I'll write an urgent letter here. With your identity as a Night Watcher, you should be able to enter the matching system immediately. Cass quickly added, I heard that Commander Coden was looking for me, so I got the recommendation letter in advance. After Commander Coden finished writing the urgent letter, he gave a final reminder. Remember, don't be greedy. Chapter 595. Since there was a possibility of a longer match. After receiving the urgent letter, the 3 of them immediately went to the Knight's headquarters to register. An urgent letter from Captain Coden, a Night Watcher, and a chain of fate events? Please wait for a moment. Our staff will bring you directly to the clock tower to verify the availability of the chain of events. Once the verification is successful, you will be inserted into the first row of the matching system. Okay, clock tower. Han Dong was very familiar with it. Because of Mr. Black and White, the clock had given Han Dong special treatment many times. It was the same as before. The 3 of them followed the staff of the Knight's headquarters to the clock tower and were personally received by the clock. After explaining the purpose of their visit, the clock led them to a room full of gears operating. The subsequent activation of the chain of fate events requires more than 50% of the current team members who have completed the previous event. Both Cass and I have done so. Please place your palm on this crystal ball that is connected to the gate of fate. The information of the chain of events that you have experienced will be displayed. After confirming that there are no errors, the matching of subsequent events will begin. Han Dong and Cass placed their palms on the crystal ball. The pure and flawless crystal ball was immediately occupied by a gloomy and foul aura. Slowly, a strange little town was formed in the crystal ball. The Joker's Resurrection Chain Event. Part 2. Scale. 2 to 3 teams are allowed to participate at the same time. The number of people in each team cannot exceed 4. Status. Already matched with a team of similar level. You are in luck. Sometimes, a chain of events like this will take months or even longer to be matched. Since you're facing the real fate for the first time as a new knight, you can also ensure that the difficulty of the chain of events will be minimized. The longer this chain of events is delayed, the more difficult it will be. Once you are all prepared, you can start the matching. When a number of match teams is greater than 2, if no other teams join in within 24 hours, the chain of events will officially start with 2 teams. Since the clock had decided to take over personally, the staff who followed them did not stay any longer and immediately returned to the headquarters. Nicholas, congratulations on becoming an official knight. In the absence of outsiders from the knight's headquarters, the chronographer took off her whirlpool mask, revealing an exquisite and slightly mechanized female face. This was also the first time Cass and Diana had seen the chronographer's true appearance. They were so shocked that they were speechless. Moreover, Diana looked at Han Dong with a strange gaze. In Diana's impression, the timekeeper in the clock tower was a mysterious character with a high status, comparable to the guild leader. Currently, this timekeeper seemed to be very familiar with Han Dong. Thank you, clockmaker. The watchman reminded. It is indeed a good decision to choose to carry out the chain mission that was laid down during your apprenticeship as soon as you become a knight. However, the difficulty of this chain mission is slightly higher, and the fluctuation of the energy spectrum curve is abnormal. You might be strong enough, but you lack experience in true fate. During the execution of this mission, you must be careful at every step. All right, because there is already a team waiting, your participation will cause the event to meet the opening conditions. Once the match is made, you will be teleported to the Fate Transfer Station. After 24 hours, the follow-up of the chain of events would officially begin. In the meantime, you will enjoy all the best services at the transit station. If you're ready, follow me. Ready? Han Dong had already prepared before the night election. As for Cass and Diana, who was temporarily arranged, there was no hesitation in their eyes. However, Diana seemed to have some other emotions. Considering that there would be 24 hours of rest, Han Dong intended to wait until the 3 of them arrived at the transit station before he could have a deeper conversation with this new girl to establish a relationship of trust. The timekeeper led the 3 of them to the familiar entrance of the Gate of Fate. Remember to come back alive. Definitely. It had been almost 2 years since he entered the realm of fate, and the feeling of the Gate of Fate had not changed. However, the touch this time was slightly different. Han Dong was not involved in it immediately. Only a notification sounded. Detected that among the 3 participants, 2 of them have the prerequisites to start the chain event, The Return of the Clown, Part 2. You can choose to match the chain event. You can also choose to match the chain event, Talent Tree, randomly. Please make your choice within 1 minute. The clown has returned. Matching. Detected that there is another team of the same level in the queue for The Return of the Clown, Part 2. You have met the conditions to open the chain event. Next, you will be led to the transit station. Please do not attack any of the staff members in the transit station. When the notification ended, the 3 of them were forcefully pulled in by the spatial pole. The tungsten light bulb lit up. After resisting the strong sense of dizziness, the 3 of them appeared in a shabby hotel lobby. Behind the counter, which was full of scratches, stood a hotel owner with a gloomy face. His black, hole-like head was full of twisted black lines. It looked somewhat similar to the whirlpool mask worn by the timekeeper, but the face of the hotel owner was more three-dimensional. Welcome to the Gate of Fate. You will stay for 24 hours. Please follow me. The hotel owner, who was wearing a white singlet and beach pants, held a bunch of keys and walked upstairs. If it were not for the timekeeper and the realm of Fate's warning, Han Dong would have thought that this place had reached the danger zone of the Fate event and be wary of this strange hotel owner. It was similar to the structure of a motel. Walking along the corridor on the second floor, Han Dong immediately discovered the video store, which was a street away. Every time he entered the realm of fate, he would have to choose a store for the event selection. The bright street lights completely illuminated the dark area of the store. You can rest here for the duration of your stay. The room can satisfy all your needs. Room 204, which was opened by the hotel owner, was only equipped with a shabby single bed and a black and white TV. This TV, Han Dong quickly discovered problem. The remote control could open various menus on the TV. Change room, change style, add facilities. Not long after, Han Dong created a luxurious European-style mansion. At the same time, there was also a variety of food delivery services. There was even a massage service. A black face technician would come into the room to give professional massages. Not long after, the various functions of the transit station were played by Han Dong. At the moment, Han Dong and Cass were sitting at a table on the balcony. They were holding skewers and drinking wine. Han Dong would occasionally glance at Diana, who was in the room. Ever since she entered the room, she had not said a word. Chapter 596. 24 hours of stay time. At most, they would only need 10 hours of rest. The remaining 14 hours would be used to enjoy the service of the transit station and communicate with their teammates. Just as Han Dong tilted his head to look at Diana, he noticed that the young lady sitting in the corner seemed to be making some special preparations. Cass, you look better than me. Go and talk to her. This girl seems to have some opinions about me. You're the captain, and you need to arrange the follow-up. It's useless for me to talk to her. Go. Besides, as a married woman, it's not good for me to talk to her. Okay. Han Dong was not very good at communication. Usually, when he cooperated with strangers, he would establish the first layer of relationship through his strength. Han Dong deliberately took a freshly grilled beef brain and tried to start the conversation with food. When he was 2 meters away from her, the girl's voice sounded. Can you give me a piece of beef bone? Okay. Han Dong immediately removed the entire bone from the tomahawk steak and handed it to the girl. When he took the beef bone, he saw that the girl was preparing for something. She was applying a purifying agent to lubricate all the bones in her body. Of course, she was not applying it directly to her body. Instead, she took the bones out of her body one by one, applied it slowly, and polished it. If an ordinary person saw such a scene in the middle of the night, they would have fainted from shock. Thank you. The girl took the beef bone and crushed it into powder with her abnormally strong teeth. She swallowed it to replenish the bone energy in her body and fill her stomach at the same time. Can I ask you a question? The girl who was full took the initiative to talk to him. Yes. How do you know the clock creator? Even when I went to the clock tower with Uncle Coden, I never had the chance to talk to the clock creator. My teacher has a good relationship with the clock creator. Then, is the clock creator a real person or a mechanical creation? Maybe both. I don't know the specifics. Oh. After getting the answer, Diana stopped talking and continued to lubricate every bone in her body. Ahem. Diana, you didn't experience the clown's resurrection with us. Since we have time now, why don't I tell you more about the clown in Dry Town? The town of Ridley we're about to head to is an extremely dangerous area. As soon as the topic of fate was brought up, Diana immediately inserted the rib into her body. She only needed to place the rib on the corresponding skin surface, and the rib would automatically sink into the skin and connect to the corresponding position. Go ahead, I'll listen carefully. As Han Dong recounted the events that happened in The Return of the Clown, Han Dong began to explain. He had heard that the clown could disguise himself as a member of the party, control every single citizen in the town, and that the red balloons that floated around the town could interfere with everyone's minds and even create illusions. Diana stole glances at Han Dong many times with her big black eyes. It was hard for her to imagine that Han Dong, who was still a trainee knight, would be able to deal with such a terrifying existence. Moreover, it was due to a chain of events. Han Dong was still in the process of slowly uncovering the secrets of Dry Town and the problems of the inner world. The clown was just an escaped resident of the inner world. In the real Ridley Town, there were many existences that were as terrifying as the clown. There were even existences that the clown couldn't fight against. Singing, the ending of the clown's resurrection was given by Han Dong. The terrifying woman's singing and the countless arms that came out of the cracks caused even the muscular clown to be unable to resist. He was directly dragged back to Ridley Town. Diana didn't expect Han Dong to use such a dangerous method to clear the outer world. However, at that time, no one was able to fight the clown directly. This might have been the safest way to clear the outer world. In short, it was very difficult to clear the outer world. The difficulty of the inner world is needless to say. Moreover, one of the inner world residents that I enslaved had all his memories of Ridley Town erased after being enslaved. We can only rely on ourselves to find out the real situation inside. After saying that, Han Dong directly released Togu. When Togu, who was wearing a long black leather coat and had a bald head with a saw embedded in it, appeared, Diana became vigilant. In Togu's mind, all his memories of Ridley Town had been erased. Enslaving? How did you do it? Diana didn't understand this at all. She searched through the knowledge in her mind, but she couldn't think of any profession that could enslave a life form in the Fate realm and even bring them back to reality. Obviously, Han Dong couldn't possibly have so many points to exchange for such a powerful Fate creature. Everyone has their own specialties. Just like how Abel can control hundreds of beasts, Demps is proficient in all types of magic and can also fight in close range. You also have the unique bone element characteristic. How about this? I'll use my enslavement characteristic information in exchange for your bone element characteristic information. Han Dong successfully lured the topic to the secret of her ability. Han Dong had to understand this girl in depth so that he could formulate a foolproof plan. Actually, Diana herself cared a lot about the secret of her ability and was unwilling to share it. But at this time, some words from Commander Coden appeared in Diana's mind. Okay, but you have to go to a room with me alone. When talking about her own secret, Diana seemed a little embarrassed. Or perhaps she needed to demonstrate her ability through a practical demonstration. Okay, just like this, after chatting for a while, the two of them actually went to a private room. This made Cass, who was on the balcony, completely at a loss. For a moment, the two words that others often use to describe Han Dong appeared in his heart. A man and a woman were alone in the room for 2 whole hours. The first to walk out was Diana. She was panting slightly. The cloak that was originally used to cover her body was also gone. Moreover, the moment she left the room, Diana chose to go to the bathroom to wash her body. After about 3 minutes, Han Dong slowly walked out while holding onto the wall. Those who didn't know would think that the two of them were doing something inside. In fact, in a situation where it wasn't easy to use words to explain, directly using actual combat to directly explain, fortunately, it wasn't a real battle. Otherwise, Han Dong might have been seriously injured. I finally understand the other reason why Commander Hugo asked me to go to the headquarters of the Night Watchers. This girl is indeed worth recruiting into the team. It's not just against the monsters in the Fate realm. For example, the real fate of a team mode like this, there will definitely be conflicts with other teams due to interests in the future. Diana, who specializes in dealing with people, will be a great weapon in our team. Chapter 597. If not for the Sacred City's strict restrictions on true destiny. Han Dong might have used the relationship between Mr. Black and White and the Clock Maker to enter the Destiny realm alone. After all, Han Dong was a team by himself. The teammates who went through presentation together in the past. Other than Cass, who could keep up with Han Dong's pace, Sophia and Koslin were just ordinary graduates. It was impossible for them to get a recommendation letter from the leader in the early stages of joining the team, and it was difficult for them to survive the extremely difficult inner chapter. However, considering the multi-team mode, the addition of 2 strong teammates could also offset the potential threat of other teams to a certain extent. Han Dong, who had only slept for 6 hours, woke up from his dream, not feeling sleepy at all. The Destiny event that was about to happen next was of great significance to Han Dong personally, and it was no less than breaking the seed. The bathtub was filled with hot water. Han Dong slowly soaked his thin and weak body in the bathtub, letting his slightly tense nerves relax. He rested his arms on the bathtub's armrest and stared at the ceiling. Han Dong had been worrying about a problem, a chain of events. The ending of the presentation would definitely affect the plot of the inner chapter. The ending of the clown being captured and brought back to Ridley Town will affect the direction of the plot of the inner chapter to a certain extent. If there are multiple teams that have completed the presentation's plot, their sequence should be ahead of mine. They have only completed the main line requirement of eliminate Pennywise, so they should only have eliminated the clown's fake body or only killed the clown in Ridley Town. And the clown Pennywise had already carried out the clown assimilation on all the townspeople in Ridley Town. According to the clown's endless methods, even if his real body died, he could still use the townspeople's bodies, the bodies reserved in advance, or the local legendary power. The presentation's ending that I created was to let the higher-ups in Ridley Town directly bind the clown's real body and bring him back to Ridley Town directly. There was no such thing as resurrection at all. Therefore, the presentation shouldn't continue to be open to the public, and the inner chapter's plot should continue the ending that I created. The clock creator had also mentioned before that the energy spectrum curve in the inner chapter was abnormal, which could also prove this point. However, based on this information, we have an advantage over the other teams. However, the overall strength of the team cannot be determined. To be able to defeat Pennywise's team in the surface world, they were naturally strong. There are too many variables. Before we have enough information, we can only make some superficial plans. Let's take it slow. Just as Han Dong was thinking about the problem, sizzle, the incandescent light in the bathroom flickered slightly. The color changed from white to red, and there was even the smell of blood in the air. In front of the bathroom cabinet, a terrifying man with metal cones covering his eyes, red lips, and shoulder-length black hair appeared out of nowhere. Nicholas, I hope you won't disappoint the guy you mentioned who has the same crazy laugh characteristic as me. I came to the area where you humans obtain power with great interest. Don't be killed in one blow. Don't worry, I'll definitely satisfy you. That's good. If the target is strong enough, I'll lend you as much power as possible. The power of the hybrid demons combined with the taste of blood brew. Isn't it very comfortable? Han Dong just smiled and didn't give any answer. There are only 30 minutes left for the matching time. Next, the transfer station staff will inspect you. Due to the restrictions of the plot, each person can only carry a maximum of 2 pieces of equipment. You are prohibited from carrying any single-use potions. The staff, whose face was full of black lines, pushed the door open and entered. Such restrictions were somewhat similar to the night conference. Han Dong naturally chose to keep Raven, Epic, and Bone Feather Cloak excellent. Cass kept the heavy sword and large shield. What Diana kept, other than a skin-tight suit made of special materials, there was also a less conspicuous tool. She didn't carry any weapons or tools with her. Phew, everyone took a deep breath. Time was up. Dozens of arms rose from the floor of the room and dragged the 3 of them to the bottom of the muddy ground. The plot of The Clown's Resurrection, Inner Chapter, officially began. The Clown's Resurrection, Inner Chapter, Introduction, Dreary Town, Maine, USA. This is a town formed by lumberjacks during the American pioneering period. It is rural and peaceful. The only exception is that the number of missing children and deaths in this town is 6 times higher than the national average. A group of brave young men use their wisdom and courage to find and defeat the evil clown hiding in the dark corners of the town. However, is this really the end of the story? Type: Monster Scale, small to medium, 2 teams, Chaos Coefficient 8, 1 high. Many main plots are distorted by abnormal factors. At the same time, they correspond to multiple endings. Basic requirement: obtain a permanent residence permit in Dreary Town. After the basic requirement is met, the player can exit and complete the current Destiny event. The player will at least receive 1 talent point. as a basic reward. The player can only choose to exit when they are not in combat, not targeted by any monsters, or in a specific safe place. Only the team that perfectly completes the clown's resurrection will receive the corresponding, extremely rare reward of the chain event. The events that he had experienced flashed before Han Dong's eyes like a merry-go-round. It was like a review of the future. As the clown was dragged into the cracked wall by the scary singer, a red balloon left in the sewer area floated to Han Dong's sight. Pop! The balloon exploded, and the review ended. Han Dong woke up from a state of sleep. He was in a large lecture hall. The bald teacher was talking about the fluid mechanics of the turbulent field. He was talking a little fast. There were less than 30 people in the lecture hall. Most of the students looked absent-minded or were muttering. They did not pay attention to the lecture at all. They seemed to have something on their minds. Han Dong immediately found Diana and Cass, who had just woken up, in different areas of the classroom, considering that the three of them were pretending not to know each other. Isn't this dreary town? Has the setting expanded? The corner of the textbook and the solid wood desk was printed with the emblem of Bates College. The school was one of the more famous liberal arts colleges in Maine. Dreary Town, which corresponded to the resurrection of the clown, was at most an ordinary local high school. The physics teacher on the podium suddenly turned purple. He pinched his throat with one hand and made a low hiss that sounded like the trachea was blocked. His body kept trembling, and he felt like his whole body was frozen. Suddenly, swish, a gloomy arm stretched out from the physics teacher's cotton-padded coat. 5 fingers clasped the physics teacher's face and pulled him into the coat. He disappeared in front of the whole school. The abnormal aura in the lecture hall also disappeared. The students were indifferent to the situation in front of them. They were just talking about their own things. Han Dong stared at the scene in front of him and could not help but mutter, "Is the beginning so exciting?" Chapter 598. Regarding the supernatural situation in the classroom and the disappearance of a living teacher. The group of students in the classroom may be a little frightened, but they did not run away in a frenzy. Instead, their eyes were gloomy as they sat in their seats and began to discuss. It seemed that they were used to this kind of thing. My father has applied for the relocation permit. He will be heading southwest tomorrow. Our family is still applying for it. I really don't want to stay here for another day. Han Dong quietly listened to the exchange between the students and gathered the useful information he could find. He waited for the first person to leave the classroom before he signaled the team of 3 to blend in with the crowd and leave the classroom together. Caution was important, especially at the beginning of the game. If the identity of the 3 was known by the other team at the beginning, it was very likely that they would be used during the subsequent events. An American-style high school building with red bricks and a blue roof. The scale of the campus was relatively large, and the scenery was not bad, but overall, it looked slightly bleak. It was the turn of autumn and winter. Fallen leaves and a large number of missing person notices drifted along the campus path with the wind. This school and Dry Town were both located in Maine, but Bates College was nearly 100 kilometers away from Dry Town. However, the strange disappearance incident had affected this place. When they passed by a storeroom in the teaching building, the 3 quickly entered without anyone noticing. The teacher disappeared in public, but everyone was indifferent. This kind of disappearance incident may be very common in the current world. At least it often happens in this university. There is a certain distance between the school and Dry Town. The disappearance of children should have happened in Dry Town. But now, restrictions have been relaxed, and the area has been enlarged, affecting the area dozens of kilometers away from Dry Town. This kind of situation must have something to do with the abnormal ending that I created. Cass naturally thought of the situation at that time and added, "Could it be that because you destroyed the entrance of the sewer, a large number of residents came to the real world?" With Dry Town as the starting point, a force of panic began to spread to other areas of the country. In the classroom, just now, only we could see the arm. What ordinary people saw was just the sudden disappearance of the teacher. Also, from the conversation of the students, everyone seems to want to stay away from Maine where Dry Town is located. The farther away from here, the better. Diana, can you capture a school teacher for questioning? After saying that, Diana immediately disappeared from the storeroom. In less than 10 seconds, a female teacher whose mouth was sealed was captured and brought over. Eye-opening. The female teacher who was staring at Little Magic, I stopped struggling and answered Handong's questions. What's with the disappearance incident? When did it start? In our Bates Academy, basically every 12 to 24 hours, there will be a person who completely disappears. This kind of disappearance incident started about 2 years ago. At that time, the frequency of disappearances was still very low, so it did not attract too much attention. It wasn't until the police officers who came to investigate the disappearance also disappeared that everyone realized that something was wrong. The school tried their best to investigate the source of the disappearance and found that everything originated from Dry Town, which was located in the south-central part of Maine. The closer they got to the town, the more people disappeared. Even if the country sent an army over, all of them disappeared after just one night, not bringing back any information. Everyone is trying their best to get a relocation permit. As long as they leave Maine, the probability of them going missing will be minimized. According to the female teacher's more comprehensive answer, Cass's guess was also confirmed. Due to the ending created by Han Dong, the inside and outside were connected. A force of panic centered on Dry Town was spreading in all directions. Do you know us? Han Dong asked the female teacher who was mentally controlled. Yes, Warren Nicholas, the vice president of the student council. Cass Maldini, the captain of the school baseball team. Diana, the cheerleader of the school. You are all outstanding students in our school. Where is the student dormitory? How do I check my dormitory? The back of your campus card corresponds to the building and dormitory number. The dormitory building is built around the artificial lake in the center of the school. Okay, you can go now. After the female teacher left for a while, the three of them pretended to be good friends in a small group and went to the dormitory to make a deeper plan. Walk faster, don't look back. There seems to be something at the end of the corridor. Since Han Dong's magic I had just been used and had not been turned off, he could see the situation behind him. At the end of the corridor, there was a blurry thing. It seemed to be hiding in the shadows, but it also seemed to be attached to someone. The strange thing might be staring at the other students in the corridor, or might be staring at Han Dong and the other two. After Han Dong left, the strange thing did not do anything. Walking on a forest path full of missing person notices, they arrived at the dormitory area. Every time they passed by a room, they could almost hear the students talking to their families on the phone, asking when they could move. It was a very common thing to bring a girlfriend to the male dormitory during special times and in more open-minded foreign countries. Even though Diana had a pure face that could make one's imagination run wild, when the other students saw Cass, the baseball team captain, they did not dare to have too many thoughts. In terms of clothing, because the weather had turned cold, Han Dong's physical fitness was very poor. He even added a thick down jacket over his school uniform, wrapping his entire body tightly. There was nothing special about him. Cass was wearing a white-sleeved and black baseball uniform with a hooded sweater, jeans, and sneakers. Together with Cass's height of nearly 190 centimeters and strong physique, he was bright and sunny. He was bright, strong, and handsome. He was definitely one of the best partners in school. Diana, on the other hand, was wearing a standard white shirt, black tie, pleated skirt, and small leather shoes. She paired it with a scarf, a small jacket, and black stockings that were needed for the season. In addition, she had the face of a pure high school student to begin with, so the number of people who turned to look at her was extremely high. However, if they looked at her for a while, they might be killed by bonehead. When Diana and Cass were such a perfect match walking together, Han Dong looked completely unnecessary. In the two-person dormitory, because of the system settings, Han Dong and Cass happened to be roommates. As soon as they entered the dormitory, Han Dong spread out his perception to prevent others from eavesdropping. We can't rule out the possibility that another team is also in Bates Academy. We have to pretend to be ordinary students as much as possible. As for the basic requirement, obtain a permanent residence permit in Ridley Town. I'm afraid we need to go deep into Ridley Town or maybe just kill a resident. Currently, we have too little information and clues. We need to investigate step by step. Then let's go now. There's no need to rush, since there's something in the school. Let's first use the thing hidden in the dark that caused the disappearance of the teachers and students to determine if the other teams are also in this school. If they don't exist, we could try to kill the thing and maybe get more direct clues. Chapter 599. Maine, Bangor City. Due to the military's control, only a small number of people could apply for relocation permits and leave every day. Due to the increasing frequency of disappearances and the threat to their lives, a large number of townspeople marched on the streets and surrounded the town hall. There were even several small-scale riots. Many criminals and some people at the bottom of society took advantage of such an opportunity to vent their desires. Even if they died, they wanted to die comfortably. A group of small organized groups came to an apartment building far away from the police station and the station military area. 4 of them were armed with guns. Robbing money was the first priority. With money, they could fight for the opportunity to migrate and live a better life after leaving Maine. Time was of the essence. Once this group of people encountered resistance, they would shoot or directly kill. If they encountered a good-looking woman, they would also pack her up and take her back. Boss Ruth, the alarm of the family is ringing. Hurry up, there's one more family. After you're done, take the 3rd route and leave. Understood. A total of 10 people came to the door of the room on the top floor of the apartment building. Through bullets, they destroyed the keyhole at close range. They kicked the door open. You have 3 minutes to hand over all your belongings and bank cards with passwords. I'll draw a bank card for password verification. If the password is wrong, I'll kill one of you directly. The leader, Ruth, who was armed with a revolver, was 188 meters tall. Both sides of his Mohican hairstyle were tattooed with various skull tattoos. He had spent a long time in prison, and it was during that time that he developed his muscles. He naturally would not let go of such an opportunity as soon as he was released from prison. Generally speaking, Ruth's ferocious appearance, huge body, and loaded pistol, momentum, and numbers would quickly complete the robbery. But the situation this time was a little different. Under his roar, the group of people in front of him remained indifferent. 3 young men were gathered in the living room area. There was the sound of running water in the bathroom. It seemed that there was another person. One of the young men, sitting on the back of the sofa, was taller than Ruth. He had short hair like a hedgehog and a resolute face. He was currently polishing his special boxing gloves and glanced sideways at Ruth, who had barged in. There was no fear of firearms in his eyes. A refined man with black hair and squinting eyes was standing on the balcony. His ears were pressed against the window, as if he was listening to some special sound from the outside world. He was not disturbed by the group of intruders at all. In the middle of the sofa, a young man with an extraordinary bearing was sitting cross-legged. A black braid fell on the side of his shoulder, and a dragon-patterned sword was placed flat between his knees. Just then, the sound of water in the bathroom stopped. A woman who had just finished washing her hair walked out of the bathroom, pure as ice and jade, coupled with the white mist overflowing from the bathroom and the woman's tall and slender figure. She had the aura of a fairy. Such a figure and appearance immediately gave rise to another kind of evil intent in the criminals at the door. The 3 men and 1 woman in the room all had the same physical characteristics: black hair, brown eyes, and yellow skin. Asian? This woman is really something. Ruth had never seen a woman who could make him react just by looking at her. Considering that the police were about to arrive, he did not think that this group of young men would have much money. He planned to pull the trigger and kill the 3 young men, then quickly kidnap the woman and slowly enjoy her when he returned. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, zing, there was a flash of light. The connection between his wrist and palm was gone. It was a smooth wound without any blemishes. In fact, it only started to bleed 3 seconds after it broke. The pain only slowly spread to his brain when his palm fell to the ground. Just as Boss Luce was about to scream from the pain, Luce's eyes lit up. The connection between his head and body was also gone. His consciousness quickly blurred. Before he died, Ruth's eyes were fixed on the young man sitting cross-legged on the sofa. He vaguely saw the young man sheath his sword for a moment. "Yu-Wu, did you hear any sounds?" There are no other teams within a radius of 8 miles. There is also no sound of the clown. The young man with squinting eyes who was leaning against the balcony answered softly. "Then let's change our base." "Yes, Captain." Everyone walked out of the room. The criminals who were crowded in the corridor and did not know what to do reached out to touch their necks. As the 4 of them walked past them, their heads slowly slid down from the 15 degrees cut. Everyone turned their attention back to Han Dong. "Diana, what do you think?" Suddenly, Han Dong changed the topic of discussion to the new girl. After all, Diana had not expressed her opinion. Perhaps she would be able to gain something. "The other team is not in the school." "Why do you say that?" "Broken knights like us have much stronger bones than others. Even some mages who don't train their bodies have magic energy in their bones. It's easy to distinguish them from ordinary people. I use bone sense to detect all the students in the area from the teaching building to the dormitory building. There are no abnormalities." "How confident are you?" 100%. Diana's bone sense ability surprised Han Dong. In fact, Han Dong's perception could also affect the entire school area, but there was a risk of being detected. This was also why Han Dong had not released the crows. Diana's direct perception of bones did not have the risk of being detected. It directly denied the existence of the other team. This way, things would be much easier. Well, indeed, since everyone's target is Dry Town, we will naturally encounter each other when we go deeper into Dry Town. There's no need to place the team in the same area from the beginning. We'll stay in the school for a night. The thing we ran into in the teaching building today may take the initiative to find us. Cass stared at the only 2 beds and said, "Nicholas, you sleep with me and let Diana sleep alone in the other bed. Okay." "Okay." In a completely enclosed classroom in the old teaching building of Bates Academy, a dark aura was slowly gathering. A strange person in a suit, wearing a white mask, and only one arm was constructed in the classroom. He was clearly the only one here, but he was having a reporting conversation. "Mr. Miles, when I was choosing human form, today, I smelled a strange smell from one of the students. It's a smell similar to yours, but it's very thin. Could it be related to the missing Mr. Togu? Can I try to do it?" The one-armed masked man waited quietly for a while and seemed to have gotten an answer. "Okay, I'll try to go deeper. Once I'm sure they're related to Mr. Togu, I'll report the information to Mr. Miles immediately." Chapter 600. Compared to the downtown area, which had fallen into panic and chaos, Bates Academy, a school built in the suburbs, was in a good situation because it was equipped with enough police force. The only thing the students could do was to continue with their classes and wait for their parents to get the relocation permit. At dusk, in the cafeteria area, Han Dong and the other 2 sat in a corner of the cafeteria and had just eaten several locally produced lobsters. The plan had been set. The 3 of them would only stay at the school for a day. If the thing hiding in the school didn't take the initiative to find them, Han Dong wouldn't force it. He would rent a car and head to Dry Town, just as the 3 of them finished dinner and were about to leave. Cass's handsome appearance matched with his school hunk status as the baseball captain. A blonde girl took the initiative to carry a plate and sat beside Cass, because she could disappear from the world at any time. The girl also wanted to pour out the feelings hidden deep in her heart in advance. Other than a few obvious freckles, the blonde girl's appearance and figure were quite good, especially the 2 parts that were more impressive. Few students of the same age could compare to them. "Cass, I've always liked it. Can you accompany me tonight? My roommate disappeared a few days ago, and I'm the only one in the dorm. Furthermore, I've also heard of a very terrifying matter. Someone found a body in the old teaching building. Can you accompany me?" The girl who took the initiative to throw herself into Cass's arms gave a piece of information that interested the team. Body. From the information they had learned so far, it was all about missing persons. At the same time, Han Dong saw the school car that the girl had put in her pocket with her name written on it. Wenger Cecil. Cass took the opportunity to ask, "What body?" "It's quite scary. The body was found in the old teaching building that no one goes to. I heard that it had been dead for many days. A cleaner smelled the stench when passing by, but the room that emitted the stench had been locked from the inside." Finally, the police were notified and found a large number of dismembered bodies piled up inside. The police have also been investigating this matter, but it seems that they haven't found the murderer. I suspect that a psychopathic murderer took advantage of the special period to sneak into the school and specifically target those who are alone. I'm really scared. When the girl finished speaking, Cass and the other two got up at the same time and walked toward the restaurant's exit. Cass also placed a hand on Han Dong's shoulder and turned to wave goodbye to the blonde girl. "Thank you for the message, Wenger. Tonight, I have to accompany my good brother. I heard that every night, many students gather in the gymnasium to rest together. If you're scared, you can go to the gym." He stared at the three people who were gradually disappearing into the distance. Wenger's expression immediately froze, and even turned into hatred in a very short period of time. In her eyes, Cass's so-called accompanying his brother was clearly just an excuse. The outstanding-looking Asian international student beside Cass was the one Cass wanted to accompany. "Damn you, Cass should be mine." Just as she was about to turn around and continue eating, her eyes were filled with hatred. Beside the plate, a white mask had appeared out of nowhere. The material of the mask was between leather and glass. It was very soft, but the surface was shiny. An inexplicable attraction went straight to Wenger's brain. She reached out to hold the mask and slowly put on her face. Crack, crack, crack. The moment he put on the mask, Wenger's head suddenly turned 180 degrees. Her chin was up and the top of her head was down. The white mask also slowly melted into her skin during this process. As the mask completely melted into her skin, Wenger turned her head back. The only change it brought was that the freckles on Wenger's face disappeared, and her skin became fairer and more delicate. "Cass is mine. All women who seduce him must die." Night fell. Due to the completely unpredictable disappearance and the terrifying dismemberment incident that spread in the school. During the night, almost no one on campus would walk around outside. They either stayed in their dorms to call their parents to ask about the relocation certificate or gathered with friends to spend the night together in the dorms or some public areas. Late at night, there was the sound of barefoot footsteps in the corridor of the male dormitory. The footsteps stopped in front of Han Dong and Cass's bedroom door. Knock, knock, knock. There was a rhythmic knock on the door. They seemed to be sleeping soundly, and no one came to open the door. After a while, the knocking stopped. After about 10 minutes, the locked window was actually pried open from the outside, and a blonde woman immediately climbed into the room with a sharp table knife in her hand. Wenger's face was paler than a few hours ago. That shameless woman is in Cass's dormitory. I can smell her scent. Wenger, who was holding the table knife, went straight to the wooden bed where Diana was sleeping. Aiming at her neck, she slashed down. The power was enough to decapitate her. Clang! The table knife in Wenger's hand was directly broken. Diana's neck was stronger than alloy. The blanket was lifted, temporarily blocking Wenger's vision. Swish! Diana grew bone spurs from her palms and accurately pierced through Wenger's left and right shoulders, causing her to lose the ability to move her arms and lifting her into the air. Han Dong, who was on the other side of the bed, also quickly rushed over and pinched Wenger's head. Creak! A tentacle pierced through the skull and forcibly pulled out the white mask that had fused with Wenger's head. The next second, Han Dong did an unimaginable action. He actually wore such a dangerous leather mask on his face, the same effect. As the mask adhered to his skin, it directly fused into Han Dong's head and affected his brain. Ha ha! Ha! At this time, Han Dong suddenly laughed wildly. Even the boys' dormitory could hear such strange laughter. Wild laughter greatly increases mental resistance, reduces mental influence and suppression by 90%, The effect of reducing mental ability decreases with each level, allows the user to maintain a clear mind at all times. Completely unaffected by the mask's mental influence, Han Dong only had one purpose in doing this, and that was to establish a connection with the person behind the mask and lock onto their location. As Diana confirmed that the other team was not in the school, Han Dong had already spread the crows to every corner of the campus. Han Dong also saw the situation where Wenger was invaded by the mask in the cafeteria. He continued to pretend to be an ordinary student and went back to sleep so that the thing behind the scenes would not be too vigilant. Taking this opportunity, he directly locked onto their location. Bishop's School, Lecture Hall number 3. When Han Dong gave this information, Diana had already disappeared. Cass, let's hurry up. If the target is one of the inner resident, Diana shouldn't be able to deal with it alone. Chapter 601. Difficulty. Since the Fate event had just started, there was no reference for any residents. It was difficult to estimate the difficulty level of a single resident. But since this was the real Fate, the Sacred City had even issued a vetting system for the registration. Plus, the difficulty level of the movie The Joker Returns was already on the high side. If it was a resident directly related to Draytown, it would be impossible for the team to deal with it alone. Han Dong still kept White Mask in his body to maintain contact with the target to prevent it from escaping. Even if the target was not a resident, he would still be able to obtain important clues once he suppressed it. Diana left as soon as possible. Cass smashed through the window and jumped down from the 4-story dormitory area. When he landed on the ground, he only bent his knees slightly and leaned his body forward slightly due to the falling speed. This allowed the falling speed to be converted into running speed to a certain extent, allowing him to run at a speed of 20 meters per second. When he was 20 meters away from the main teaching building, Cass bent his knees and jumped. With his pure physical strength, Cass leaped more than 10 meters into the air and flew straight to the 3rd floor of the teaching building. He even smashed through the door of the 3rd floor lecture hall and landed steadily in front of the lecture hall. But even with Cass's speed, Diana was still one step ahead of him. However, the situation in the classroom made Cass slightly stunned. Due to the frequent disappearances and dismemberment in the old teaching building, many students would choose to rest in groups. For example, there would be more than 50 people gathered in the school's gymnasium every night for entertainment and rest. There were also more than 10 people gathered in a lecture hall like this one. Help! Help! There are only 5 terrified students left and 6 clothing jackets scattered on the ground. The disappearances that would only happen once every 12 hours were happening rapidly here. The thing, hiding in the school, seemed to be frightened by Han Dong's action of wearing a mask to carry out anti-reconnaissance. It sped up the collection of human forms. 95, 96, 97. The students gathered in the lecture hall were being pulled into their clothes and disappearing one by one. Cass rushed to the 3rd floor lecture hall as fast as he could. Han Dong walked into school at a slightly faster pace than normal walking. It was not that Han Dong was not in a hurry, but he had a faint sense of uneasiness. Tonight's moon is a little strange. Even though it was late at night and all the street lights were turned off, the moonlight could still illuminate the paths in the campus. Bright and clear, bathing in such moonlight, it even made Han Dong's hair stand on end. He paused for a while. A pile of black sand carried Han Dong to the entrance of lecture theater number 3. There was only one student left in the classroom who had not been taken away. Cass and Diana's sensory abilities couldn't pinpoint the target's location. Only Han Dong, who had absorbed White Mask, could sense it. Eye-opening when Little Magic Eye opened. A horrifying scene that could easily be censored appeared in the classroom. It was as if they were in a slaughterhouse. The teachers and students who had disappeared were now hanging in the air above the classroom with chains. There were now 99 of them in human form. At this moment, a sinister arm covered in black meridians suddenly stretched out from the clothes of the last student. Whoosh! Diana arrived decisively and slashed out with her bone blade. At the same time as the arm was cut off, a new arm grew out. This method could not prevent the students from being taken away. However, Han Dong's gaze was focused in another direction. He strode up to the podium. Tentacles, the forearm disintegrated into 3 slippery tentacles, crossed the material of the blackboard, wrapped around the thing hidden inside, and pulled it out with force. For a moment, the arm in the student's clothes also disappeared, successfully preventing the student from being taken away and made into a human form. Just as Han Dong pulled the target out of the blackboard, whoosh, a silver light flashed. The severed tentacles fell to the ground. Han Dong looked troubled and stepped back. The pain of the severed tentacles produced by the faceless skull was several times greater than ordinary severed limbs. Just like that, a one-armed man wearing a white leather mask and a suit appeared in front of everyone. His body was contaminated by the tentacles and could no longer be integrated into the wall. The knife in the one-armed man's hand was wrapped in a murderous aura. Since it could easily cut off the flexible tentacles, it was enough to cut through most things. However, once this guy's body was pulled out, there was no need for Han Dong to do it himself. Judging from the aura of the one-armed man, the way of doing things, and the expression of surprise and a little fear under the leather mask, it was impossible for him to be an inner resident. However, there was something about the one-armed man that made Han Dong feel dangerous. That was the murderous aura wrapped around the blade. It seemed that this murderous aura did not completely belong to him, but was given by someone. It seemed to be related to an inner resident. Before the one-armed man could fully comprehend how he had been dragged out, Yi Zichen's expression changed. A strong killing intent enveloped his whole body. Diana's speed was frighteningly fast. Clang! The one-armed man barely blocked Diana's bone blade slash, but Diana's other hand directly grew a meter-long bone spur from the palm of her hand and locked onto his head. Whoosh! The mask was pierced. The forehead was pierced. The one-armed man was lifted into the air. The broken mask turned into 2 pieces of tattered white cloth and fell to the ground. The one-armed man's real appearance was just an ugly middle-aged man. Judging from a seal on his wrist, it seemed that he had been in a prison for a period of time. Han Dong also caught an important detail. On the one-armed man's neck, there was a seal, white moon, that was emitting a bright light. The fact that he was still alive after his head was pierced was very likely due to the energy given by the seal. The murderous aura wrapped around the blade was also related to the seal. Han Dong simply analyzed. This one-armed man's superpower should have been given to him. The purpose of staying in the school seemed to be to help a certain resident of Inner Town collect human forms. Diana did not take the next step to kill. She just lifted the target in the air so that Han Dong could interrogate him. Tap, tap, tap. With both hands in his trouser pockets, Han Dong stepped on the vertical wall, using the ability to turn his feet into sand to fix the soles of his feet to the wall. When he reached a certain height, he turned around and looked at the man who was lifted in the air. Who gave you this ability? The man did not respond to Han Dong's question. Instead, he asked, why do you have a little bit of Mr. Togu's aura left on you? Sure enough, I just need to interrogate you in depth. Just as Han Dong was about to use the pupil imprint to hypnotize the target and directly pry into his memory, the one-armed man sighed. The one-armed man sighed. Sigh. I should have been more cautious when I smelled something. I'm only missing the last human form. Now, I can only use myself to fill the gap. I'm satisfied to see Mr. Miles before I die. The collection of 100 human forms is complete. Mr. Moonlight Miles, please come. Kill him. Han Dong immediately used black sand to erode the man's life. In the next second, only his suit was left on the ground. The bright moonlight shrouded the campus. A man wearing a white leather mask, an electrician's uniform, and size 50 leather shoes stood at the school gate. Chapter 602. The scene of a slaughterhouse that the little magic eye saw in the hanging, humanoid, had all been sucked away by the moonlight. Resident of the inner city, Moonlight, Michael Miles, has arrived. Current area, Bates Academy, has been sealed off by moonlight. Sealing time, 48 hours. The system's notification was very short. It didn't give any hints about the storyline, nor did it give any hints about how to solve the current predicament. It only stated that the resident had arrived. Togu, who was in his cell, also heard the system's voice. Such a name awakened a few memories in Togu's head. Miles is actually here. Master, be careful. How much do you remember? Only a very small part of my memories have been awakened. Moonlight, Miles, is a resident whose physical quality is no worse than mine. He can obtain power from the slaughter of any living creature and increase his moonlight baleful aura. Back in Reed Town, moonlight baleful aura was a great threat to me. Also, any creature exposed to moonlight will be sensed by Miles. Also, I seem to vaguely remember that Miles has a terrifying ability called execution. You must be careful. I have already lost my right to live in Reed Town. These true residents have a unique way of obtaining energy. Do you need my help? Toga's fighting spirit was still very strong. He really wanted to have intimate contact with his former neighbor. No need. Now is not the time for you to make your appearance. Miles' appearance in Bates Academy, which is very far from Reed Town, is also a good thing. There won't be any other residents interfering. This will allow me to assess the true strength of the residents. Okay, it couldn't be better to be able to obtain some information from Togu in advance. As for the baleful aura characteristic, Handong had already seen some from Miles' one-armed lackey. It could make the blade in one's hand become abnormally sharp and had an abnormally large increase in damage to flesh and blood. Strong physical quality, baleful aura, and moonlight perception. Also, you must be careful of an ability called execution. Han Dong gave a simple report of the situation. He suddenly reached out and placed his hand on Diana's shoulder. In the previous operation, your speed was a bit too fast. What has appeared now is a resident of the inner city that is directly related to the main storyline of the true destiny. In the following operations and battles, you must be in sync with us. This time, Han Dong's tone was no longer calm. Instead, it had become abnormally stern, causing Diana to be slightly shocked. Although she didn't really want to listen to Han Dong's orders, Koden had specifically instructed her to treat Han Dong as the leader of this operation. Okay, I got it. Diana's movements were indeed frighteningly fast. However, in a situation where the enemy might be stronger than her, this kind of speed might not necessarily be a good thing. We will first clash with the residents of Inner Village once to measure the strength of the Inner Chapter. If we can't win, or if any unknown dangerous situation occurs, our lives will be at risk. I will try to stall for time. You must find a place where the moonlight doesn't shine and hide. Then, we can discuss countermeasures again. It was necessary to try. Han Dong had to figure out the difficulty of true fate before he could formulate a plan. Baseball stadium, the moonlight shone on the arena. Han Dong and the other two slowly walked out from the shadows on the side of the spectator seats. They took the initiative to expose their bodies to the moonlight. This kind of change from darkness to light should have made people feel comfortable. But right now, it made the three of them feel as if they were being watched by a terrifying creature. Cass was already holding a heavy sword and a large shield in his hands. 1. Stone boar sword, blue, excellent. A heavy sword forged by the boar tribe for the elder stone boar. It is a heavy two-handed weapon. Overlord can wield it with one hand. When attacking, it has the effect of stone boar's charge, increasing the speed of swinging. Every time it hits the target, the user's defense will increase. 2. Frost Iron Bulwark, purple, unique. The final reward from the Frost Cell event, the large shield. Overlord will not be affected by the large shield speed reduction effect. When blocking an attack, it has the effect of frost, slowing the target. When perfectly blocking an attack, Frost Choice will be triggered. First choice, Ice Scale Armor, absorbs the opponent's attack energy and transforms it into ice scales, creating a layer of temporary armor for the user that can absorb damage. Second choice, Frost of Frost, completely reduces damage and freezes the target at the same time. The duration of the freeze depends on the target. It was a defender in the truest sense of the word. Cass, who was wearing a baseball uniform and holding a sword and shield, looked like a hero who had transmigrated to a magical world. Diana didn't change her posture at all, nor did she use any offensive equipment. She herself was a killing machine. Hundreds of crows had already stopped at the spectator stands around the baseball field, monitoring the situation within 100 meters. How did he appear? The crows couldn't see the target at all. Moonlight Miles, who was wearing a white leather mask, was already standing at the edge of the baseball field. His size 50 leather shoes and pants were already exposed under the moonlight. For this kind of situation, Han Dong only felt a little bit nervous, but more of it was a kind of anticipation. Previously, in the third lecture theater, Han Dong had even hesitated for a moment. He even had a certain intention to let the one-armed man successfully complete his plan. As Miles stepped into the baseball field, his body was completely bathed in the moonlight. An indescribable pressure was emitted from his body. The resonance couldn't be compared to the hybrid demons. The pressure and indescribable fear he brought was unique. Cass, you attack from the front. Diana will assist in the attack. You must let Cass attract his attention first before you attack. Okay, based on the information given by Togu, Miles leaned towards physical attacks. It couldn't be better to let Cass cooperate with Diana to probe him. Lion's Charge. The Lionheart Knights had given Cass the charge special skill. With the huge shield in front, with every step forward, the momentum and impact increased. However, this Mr. Miles seemed to be a little slow. He didn't make any movements to dodge. Clang! The collision hit. A wave of air spread out on the baseball field. Cracks even appeared at the point of collision. So powerful. Even Diana couldn't help but praise. But Miles, who used his body to withstand the collision, only retreated 5 steps. This kind of situation made Cass unable to understand. The acceleration and accumulation of power for 100 meters was enough to send the hybrid demons flying. At this moment, Diana followed. She grabbed Miles' mask with one hand, and an extremely penetrating bone spur grew from the palm of her other hand. She aimed at the weakest point of the human body, the temple. Pierce! Suddenly, Miles moved. He caught Diana's bone spur with one hand and used his strength to suppress it. He quickly cut with the table knife. Even though Diana had already sensed danger, she took the initiative to leave the bone spur and quickly retreated the next second. His index finger and middle finger were thrown into the air. But this was already the best situation. At the same time, a dim moon mark appeared on Diana's neck. It seemed like she had been marked. Chapter 603. Han Dong had personally experienced the hardness of Diana's bones. They were definitely stronger than steel. Butcher's cut. Diana's 2 fingers were instantly separated and thrown into the air. The cut on the bones was quite smooth, as if there was no obstruction at all. If Diana's danger perception and body reaction had been half a beat slower, her right forearm might have been gone. What's wrong with this monster? She had never encountered such a situation. Moreover, after breaking the seed, the hardness of her bones had increased by another level. Facing such an existence, her bone defense was no different from an ordinary body. One mistake, and she would be killed. She changed her posture and gave up on close combat. As she retreated, the bone density in her body was rapidly changing. Bone evolution. The unique bone characteristics and the development of the seed-breaking ability allowed Diana to derive various bone structures according to her inner thoughts. She used 2 strengthened ribs as the bow body and extremely tough cartilage as the bowstring. The flesh on her palm cracked. Through the differentiation of bone marrow stem cells, she constructed a cone-shaped bone arrow with a special structure. There seemed to be bone marrow fluid flowing inside the arrow that exceeded the energy value. Diana didn't dare to use this move in the night conference, as it could easily kill people. She instantly switched from a close combat assassin to a long-range assassin. The whole process was smooth. Deadly bone arrow. Locking on and accumulating power required 1s to 3s of charging time. Cass also made a move at this moment. Cass, who had joined the Lionheart Knights, was very clear about his position in the Knight Squad and what he should do. He had to use his excellent defense and lion strength to create the best space for his teammates to attack. What kind of brute force is this? He used his body to resist my charging charge. Cass roared. The veins on the surface of his left arm bulged, and an aura spread out under Cass's feet. Perhaps it was because he had combined with the hybrid demon, but when Cass maximized his strength, his muscles would undergo a certain degree of petrification. There were even a few layers of rock that quickly formed on the surface of his skin. Giant shield bash. The weight of the shield combined with Cass' strength directly caused Miles to lose his center of gravity. The shield and sword switched. Without any interval, Cass grabbed the stone pig sword in his hand and continued to attack to suppress Miles. He tried his best to attract Miles' attention. It would be better if he could cause damage. However, the physical strength and adaptability of the inner resident exceeded Cass' expectations. Wielding the giant shield caused Miles to lose his center of gravity for less than a second. He stepped his size 50 heavy leather shoes into the ground and stabilized his center of gravity. Killing intent leaked out. The moonlight table knife in his hand slashed at Cass fiercely. The terrifying gaze under the white leather mask gave Cass immense pressure. His aura was suppressed. Even with the combination of petrified skin, aura, and stone pig sword to increase my defense, it would still be difficult to block this attack. Sword technique, attack, and defense conversion. Cass instantly changed his strategy, forcibly changing the stone pig sword that he was brandishing into a parrying stance. What happened next stunned everyone. The seemingly ordinary table knife struck the surface of the stone pig sword, which was in a defensive stance. Clang! The stone pig sword that the wild boar tribe had forged for their elder with the giant rock as its base material was broken. Petrified skin clang. Fire splattered everywhere. The parry of the stone pig sword blocked a large portion of the damage. The remaining cutting power was just enough to cut through the petrified skin and did not cause any damage to Cass. Even so, the table knife gave him a surplus of strength. It also made Cass retreat more than 10 steps. Staring at his trembling right hand, which had been torn apart, Cass was slightly dazed. A dim moonlight mark appeared on Cass's neck. He had been marked. Of course, Inca's attention was attracted. This allowed Diana to shoot the deadly bone arrow straight at Miles' temple. In terms of hardness, bones were even harder than steel. As it flew, it tore through the air, and, at the same time, it also had a rotational force that increased the piercing effect. Sizzle. The bone arrow hit its target. It felt like a drill bit colliding with a cement floor at a construction site. It was very difficult, but in the end, it still pierced through the white leather mask. The arrowhead pierced about 5 centimeters into Miles' temple. This was obviously not enough to kill, not to mention that this resident's body was the strongest. But Diana's attack was not over. Her control over bones was more terrifying than anyone could imagine. Commander Coden raised Diana as his adopted daughter not only because of her father, but also because of Diana's talent. Bone explosion, his right hand clenched. The bone arrow that had not been pulled out by Miles in time. The surface of the arrow overflowed with a dim light. Boom! There was an explosion. Not only was the damage caused by the explosion, but the bone arrow itself was also broken into small bone fragments. With the impact of the explosion, it further pierced into Miles' skull. The effect was similar to that of shrapnel grenade. In the smoke of the explosion, Miles could be faintly seen kneeling on one knee due to his injury. Miles is injured 21%. Participants will be given 2 hours of safe rest. After 2 hours, Miles will randomly reappear in a moonlit area and activate Demon's Possession. Remember, every time you cause more than 10% damage to Miles, he will disappear in the moonlight. When he fully recovers, he will appear in a stronger state. Pray that the night passes quickly. The smoke dispersed. Miles, the resident on the baseball field, was nowhere to be seen. There's such a crazy setting. As long as he's in a moonlit environment, he'll disappear once he's injured. When he fully recovers, he'll appear in a stronger state. In this battle, Han Dong mainly focused on observation. He used his small magic eye to observe every movement of Miles, the resident's body, the flow of energy in his body, and the threat and special effects of his attacks. Every detail was seen by Han Dong. As for the execution that Togo emphasized, it might be related to the mark of the moonlight. Once hit, even if it's a very light injury, it will leave a mark on the target's body. Perhaps when a mark accumulates to a certain extent, it will trigger the execution effect. It's very likely that it will cause us to die instantly. Is this the strength of true fate? If we were in the real Reed Town, it would be impossible to face 10 or more residents head-on. The path of survival in Inner Chapter might require us to take another special route. Nicholas, did you observe anything important? Cass stared at the broken stone pig's sword on the ground. His expression was ugly. He didn't expect to encounter so much pressure at the beginning of the battle. Let's talk about it when we get back to the dorm. When Han Dong turned his head, he saw Diana standing straight on the spot. She was a little dazed and mumbling something to herself. Diana, let's go. Oh, Diana, whose expression was equally gloomy, made a strange movement. She pressed her right hand on her left shoulder collarbone, as if she was controlling some uncontrollable bone changes in her body. Chapter 604. In the dormitory, Han Dong stuck close to Cass's back. His little magic eye widened. He carefully observed the dim moonlight mark left on Cass's neck. There were no hidden magic patterns, nor could he see any energy connection. He was unable to analyze its true function. He could only guess that it had something to do with execution. In addition, Togu's physical strength had been fully demonstrated in the battle. Cass's strength was not bad at all, but he could only barely shake Miles. The most terrifying thing was the murderous aura that Miles constantly emitted. The rare and excellent equipment that was once a novice knight was actually broken by Miles with a single slash. Such terrifying strength made even the battle-hardened Kars stunned for half a second during the battle. His incomparably firm Lionheart consciousness was shaken for a moment. Too strong. It can't be measured by the fate events that apprentice knights face. When we experience the clown's resurrection, the various monsters must have been limited by the system. Their true form is under the real fate. Cass, who was temporarily without a weapon, found a roll of sports bandages in the dormitory. He was slowly wrapping it around his palm and forearm, preparing to use his fist to fight in the next battle. Fear did not exist. Even if he died in battle, Cass would not have the slightest bit of fear. But Diana did not seem to be in a good state. She was squatting alone at the foot of the bed with her thumb by her mouth. Every 5 seconds, a piece of bone would grow from the tip of her finger. Then she would bite it off, chew it, and swallow it. The deadly bone arrow that she used in the battle just now was one of Diana's killing moves. Its penetrative power was extremely strong, and the subsequent explosion would cause bone spurs to shoot out, which was a fatal move against humans. The problem with using this move was that it required a certain amount of time to accumulate power. Someone had to cooperate with her to buy time. However, Cass had bought time for her at the cost of his weapon being damaged. The bone arrow hit, but it was not fatal. It was still far from killing the target. This directly caused Diana to suffer a great blow. She had been nagging since the end of the battle. Han Dong walked to the window, alone, and sighed. It might be a good thing that the target was not killed. These words immediately attracted Diana's attention. She temporarily stopped her nagging and cast a curious and incomprehensible gaze at Han Dong. From the moment we entered the Destiny realm to the moment we encountered the Inner Dweller, the system never gave us a true main storyline or side storyline. The basic requirement for this chapter is that we need to obtain a permanent residence permit for the town of Ridley and kill one of its residents. Since these two matters were discussed separately, it meant that killing a resident would not directly obtain a residence permit. In order to obtain a residence permit, one would need to complete a special mission or reach the inner part of Ridley Town. Based on the strength that Moonlight Miles had displayed so far, if we meet 3 or 4 of these residents, we're basically doomed. But the Destiny Realm's original intention is to eliminate the weak and nurture the best humans, so it won't give us a death sentence for no reason. Therefore, there must be some special way to avoid being besieged. My initial guess is that the relationship between the residents is not as good as it is in real life. It is more of a state of killing each other when they meet. If we meet 2 residents at the same time, it is very likely that there will be a triangle of opposing relationships. If Miles can only appear under the 2 conditions of night and moonlight, we can change our way of thinking and let this demonic person who is chasing us become our bodyguard. Han Dong's inference. Diana found a key point and asked, how do we determine the hostile relationship between the inner dwellers? If not, there is no turning back at all. It's too risky. A resident who was enslaved by me told me. He and Miles were in a relationship where they would fight each other when they met. The same was true for the former clown. And in the battle just now, his memory was slowly awakening. According to him, Miles was a resident who did not like to talk and liked to act alone. Once he met other residents who made him unhappy, he would fight them head-on. Cass also found it difficult to accept such a suggestion. He asked further, Nicholas, you mean we keep stalling? After 48 hours, the moonlight barrier that shrouded the campus will disappear. But to go to Ridley Town while being chased by this demonic person, that's a little too risky. That's what I mean. It is very difficult to meet a bodyguard who needs to meet both the time and the setting conditions at the same time. If we meet another Fate squad on the way, we can also hand the bodyguard over to them. Only Han Dong dared to do such a crazy act. A normal squad would never come up with such a plan. Trust me this once, and several inkjet tentacles grew out of Han Dong's palm. He directly drew the thumbnail map of Bates Academy in his brain and printed on a piece of white paper using the method of inkjet printing. Cass, you and Diana will move together. Draw the Moonlight District and non-Moonlight District in the campus. I have confirmed that in the 48 hours when the moonlight is sealed, there will be no alternation between day and night. The bright white moon in the sky will not move. From the moment Miles appeared until now, the position of the moon has not changed. What about you? I will make a trip to the old academic building. After all, there was a vicious severing of limbs there. It might be related to the middle-aged murderer who obtained the power of moonlight. There might also be other secrets hidden there. We must not overlook any details of the Fate incident. If there are no problems in the old academic building, I will come and find you. Okay. Be careful. Okay. Although it was dangerous for Han Dong to move alone, in reality, Han Dong had the most people with him. If there was any danger, he could directly attack with all his forces. After a while, Han Dong was already standing at the south side of the campus, in front of the old academic building that was no longer in use. All the doors and windows on the first floor were sealed with wooden planks. Although it is relatively old, there are no cracks on the whole building. It can still be used as a backup academic building. There must be a special reason for it to be sealed. Gulp. Han Dong's mouth bubbled as pink tentacles drilled out of his body. Nicole, who had a human upper body and a pink octopus lower body, appeared in the dark night. Ouch, you're suffocating me. Ever since she came to the Fate realm, Nicole had been clamoring to come out. But once a dependent like Nicole appeared, it would take a long time for Han Dong to explain to his teammates. Besides, the Keeper was a trump card. Han Dong did not intend to fully reveal it in the early stages. Since he was going to move alone, he temporarily let Nicole out to prevent her from feeling uncomfortable. Nicole stuck her high nose to the door and sniffed slightly. Why is there a strange smell in this building? Chapter 605. It was hard for Nicole to distinguish this strange smell. It smelled like blood, skin, and some kind of industrial rubber material mixed together. Is this the smell? A bright white leather mask was in Han Dong's hand. It was the mask that Han Dong used to track down the school killer, and it had some connection with Miles. Yes, this is the smell. It's just that the smell coming out of the building is stronger. Han Dong smelled this smell when he got close to the building. It wasn't like Abel's sensitive nose, but the smell of the building itself was very strong. Combined with the demonic humanoid's collection of human forms, and the police found broken corpses in the old school building, Han Dong could guess some problems. Nicole, let's go. The octopus girl felt a little danger. Her little finger turned into a slender octopus tendril and gently hooked on a Han Dong's palm. They entered the old school building through the main door. They destroyed the police cordon and turned the door into sand. Creak, when they stepped into the old school building, a smell 10 times stronger than before instantly entered their nostrils. You have entered the special area, Miles Mass Factory. Side quest. Demonic humanoid creation has been triggered. Demonic humanoid creation. Plot participant. 1 requirements. Completely reveal the demonic humanoid creation process. Kill the factory supervisor. Destroy the factory. Rewards 1. This side quest is a derivative of Village Resident, Merc Miles. After completion, you will receive Demonic Diary. 2. There's a certain probability of receiving material items. Note, be careful. If you make a big commotion, Miles will definitely be attracted. Han Dong's face was filled with joy. It's finally here. The long-awaited side quest. I thought True Fate wouldn't have this kind of directional hint. This kind of direct side quest will definitely reveal Miles' secrets on a deeper level, which will be more beneficial to the implementation of the security plan. Nicole turned back to human form. Oh, the tendrils on her lower body immediately retracted and turned into long white legs with a hint of pink. There were even some water droplets left on her tender skin. With such impressive long legs, coupled with Nicole's fairy-like beauty and her student attire, she looked a bit like the female lead of a certain expensive sex film. She was the most attractive person in the film. A burly, perverted ogre paired with a female lead with an impressive figure, as well as a few tons of ketchup, and a B-grade popcorn movie was formed. Let's split up. Split up? Is that so? After saying that, Nicole easily removed her head from her neck. A large number of octopus tentacles grew from the bottom of its head, and it could crawl freely. The image of a perfect little fairy was instantly shattered. No, act alone. You're mainly responsible for attracting the attention of the other existences in the building. Try your best to make all of them chase after you. It's similar to the plot in a B-grade movie. B-grade film. I'll show it to you in the future. In short, your mission is to attract attention and escape. Once I discover the secrets of the factory, I'll come to your aid immediately. Oh, all right. Nicole nodded slightly, feeling that she had something to do. She then jogged towards the other end of the tunnel. Her 2 slightly fleshy long legs trembled slightly as she ran. After all, most of Nicole's body was related to water. Even if she transformed into a human, her skin was still more tender than a human's. However, the scene of splitting up just now was still in Han Dong's mind. It seemed to be more exciting than the current scene. Why do I have to act alone? The problem lies in the hint of the side quest. In the current old teaching building, the windows were all boarded up and the moonlight didn't shine in. Under normal circumstances, Miles wouldn't come here. If Han Dong killed the supervisor of the factory in advance, it was very likely that the ogre would descend. He had to understand the so-called essence of the factory in advance and uncover the secrets here. In order to achieve perfect concealment, Han Dong once again put on the white mask. Coupled with the camouflage ability of the faceless head, his aura was similar to that of the factory. Perception is about 80% limited by the special area. Search a bit slower. Walking in the corridor on the first floor, a classroom with a strange aura and locked from the inside attracted Han Dong's attention. Even the corridor windows were boarded up with newspapers and wooden boards. Fortunately, Han Dong had the ability to see through things. Leaning close to the window, he used his magic eye to see through things. A scene that made people uncomfortable came into view. A large number of missing people were hanging here. Not only the teachers and students of the school, but also the residents living near Bates Academy. There was even a middle-aged man in police uniform hanging here. They were the lowest level humanoid in the factory. An employee in charge of collecting in the factory was working here. His mouth repeated a sentence, frowny face, 10 the 1, 100 the 1, 1,000 the 1, 10 is 1, 100 is 1, 1,000 is 1. The employee had been doing the same work for a long time. His back was severely bent, his body was hunched, and his skin was wrinkled due to age. On this worker's face, there was a white leather mask that was forcibly fixed on his face with a small hook. The same moonlight mark was imprinted on his neck. This kind of technical worker had sharp blades embedded between his fingers so that he could quickly harvest without any tools. There were many factories like this in the collection room, which was the prerequisite for the creation of the ogre. Just when Han Dong was peeping, without any sound of footsteps, a worker in the factory walked down the corridor and quickly approached. When Han Dong turned his head, a woman in a female teacher's outfit, high heels, black stockings, skirt, white shirt, and suit, was already standing beside him. The face was also fixed with a white leather mask overflowing with magic luster through a meat hook. Unlike the workers in the classroom, this leather mask was completely attached to the face. When the female teacher spoke, the corresponding mouth part of the mask moved slightly, and an elegant voice came from inside. 10-person mask, not imprinted with the moonlight mark. Are you a new worker? Follow me. Han Dong was silent. He nodded and followed behind the person in charge. It was better to have someone take the lead. According to Han Dong's observation, the person in charge was going to take him to imprint the mark. I was put on the mask outside. Excuse me, where is this place? It seemed that a male had personally come to the school, and the person in charge, dressed as a female teacher, was in a good mood. She patiently answered Han Dong's question. The ogre factory, Lord Male, gave us the power of eternal life. We are here to create better, and more perfect ogre masks for Lord Male. At the same time, we will develop some superior humans into low-level ogre to serve Lord Male. From the mask you are wearing, your characteristics should have caught the eye of a 10-person ogre, so you were given the opportunity to become a 10-person ogre. Chapter 606. Oh, so that's how it is. There's a big difference between 10 people, 100 people, and 1,000 people, right? A smile appeared on the female teacher's face. This isn't an ordinary difference. 10 human demon, like you can only do the most basic work in the factory. After you finish your work, you can go to the outside world to collect human samples. The power you get from the 10 people mask isn't much. If you encounter the police, you'll be shot to death. A 100 people demon, like me, is mainly responsible for the factory's inspection and management, as well as the production of low-level demons. Whenever night falls, I can go out to look for food. Even if I face firearms, I won't die. The mask and the power of moonlight bestowed by Meyer-sama give me eternal life. As for the 1,000 people demon, you need to meet Meyer-sama's requirements in all aspects. Moreover, you need to have the willpower to withstand the resentment of the 1,000 people mask. In our factory, only the supervisor belongs to the 1,000 people demon, so don't annoy him. Let me tell you about the distribution of the factory. The first floor is the material collection room. You need to collect the materials needed before the fresh human samples rot. The second floor is the inspection room. You need to inspect the quality of the skin one by one. You need to separate them according to their degree of completeness. When you get the perfect skin, you need to hand it over to the supervisor. The third floor is the leather manufacturing room. Only workers who are skilled and familiar with the process are allowed to work here and make masks. Every month, 110 people mask and a very small amount of 100 people mask will be produced. As for the 1,000 people mask, once it is produced, we will receive Meyer-sama's moonlight favor. Once your imprint is completed, you will be assigned to work on the first or second floor. What about the fourth floor? Although the female teacher was happy today, she felt that she had said enough. She impatiently explained to Han Dong, "The fourth floor has nothing to do with you. It's the demonic production room." It's the work area of our 100-people demon. I will also take you to the fourth floor to imprint. You don't have the qualifications to go to the fourth floor alone. As for the supervisor's office, it's above. Thank you. While walking in the corridor, the female teacher's eyes flashed with an ominous glint. It seems that an intruder entered the factory. The supervisor was alarmed. Hurry up. After I brand you, I have to participate in the capture of the invaders. Under the urging of the female teacher, Han Dong arrived at the room with the words Demonic Manufacturing -02 printed on the door. It was similar to some private plastic surgery workshops. All kinds of unsterilized cutting tools and small iron hooks were placed on the table. Take a seat. As Han Dong sat on the iron chair in the room, the mechanism activated and locked all four of Han Dong's limbs. The moonlight imprint will automatically form when wearing the mask. You're emitting the aura of a lowly demonic person, but the imprint hasn't formed yet. This means that your mask is a substandard product. We will replace it with a brand new 10-person mask for you. You will like the process, haha. The female teacher found a leather mask with hooks on the edges. She had a perverted smile on her face. She seemed to enjoy the process of hooking the newcomer's mask. Just when she was less than 30 centimeters away from Han Dong, she suddenly stopped. Gag, a terrifying eye opened between Han Dong's eyebrows. In an instant, the female teacher's consciousness was pulled into the endless deep sea. All kinds of terrifying things beyond her imagination were swimming in the deep sea. An indescribable life was floating up from the depths and came in front of her. Even if the mask was strengthened, her consciousness couldn't accept such a pattern. Fragmented, decayed, and disintegrated. The female teacher lost her human form in front of Han Dong and turned into a pile of fragmented and amorphous filth. The iron chair that held Han Dong in place turned into a pile of yellow sand. Han Dong's expression was normal as he looked at the pile of filth on the ground. He even leaned over and touched the filth that symbolized the female teacher on the ground. Thank you for your explanation. I'll take your body and use it, absorbing part of the filth through the tentacles, analyzing the DNA structure, and immediately performing a deep imitation. The next second, Han Dong walked out of the room as the female teacher. In the demonic manufacturing area on the fourth floor of the factory, all kinds of wails could be heard all the time. The demonic manufacturing wasn't a 100% success rate. When wearing the mask that contained the resentment of 10 or 100 people, there would be an extremely serious rejection. This was also why it often needed to be fixed with a hook in the initial stage of wearing. Many candidates would die in the process or completely go crazy within a few days after wearing the mask. They couldn't be used by the factory and had to be recycled. As Han Dong observed the entire manufacturing process of a demonic as the female teacher, she immediately received a system notification. The demonic manufacturing process has been exposed. Please kill the supervisor and completely destroy the factory to complete the side quest. After that, Han Dong walked to every corner of the factory in her high heels, pretending to be a surveillance officer. Every time she walked past a room or a corner, she would leave behind an inconspicuous stone with a scarab imprint on the back. In addition, Han Dong also heard heavy footsteps coming from the roof. It seemed that the supervisor was chasing after Nicole's little sister. Han Dong used the master-servant relationship to send a message. Nicole, everything is ready. I'm coming to help you. Is it time to counterattack? If the target is difficult to deal with, use the deep sea secret technique to stall for time. I'll be there soon. Oh, he's already dead. The short conversation ended. When Han Dong arrived at the fifth floor, the corridor was filled with seawater. There were also various kinds of corals and shells embedded on the walls. Nicole's right arm turned into more than 10 thick pink tentacles, binding a supervisor who was as huge as a tank and almost blocking the entire tunnel. 2 tentacles reached into his nostrils. 1 tentacle reached into his mouth. She directly activated the deep sea secret technique that belonged to the deep ones. Asterisk pop pop pop. Asterisk various kinds of fish fell. The supervisor's skin expanded. Various kinds of strange fish, bony fish, fish full of blood vessels, fish embedded with organs, kept flowing out from his pores. The huge supervisor's body kept shrinking as if the flesh, organs, and bones in his body were all turned into fish by Nicole, completely hollowed out. 1 minute passed. Countless scarabs crawled all over the factory. No matter if it was dead or alive, they were all food for them. Everything they crawled through turned into black sand. These demonic humans that were transformed from humans had no way of resisting the corrosion of death. In a short period of time, the entire factory collapsed. Han Dong and Nicole stood behind the old school building, under the shade of a tree that wasn't illuminated by the moonlight. Side quest: demonic creation completed. Reward: demonic diary, special material, perfect face X1. Currently, demonic diary X1 can be consumed to unlock the illustration of Inner Village. Michael Miles. Chapter 607. Consumable item, Diary of a Demon. Because this is the first time you have obtained information from the illustrated handbook, the system will give you a resident's household register, Drytown. A black, hard leather, exquisitely crafted collective household register appeared in Han Dong's hands. Almost all the pages of the collective household register were black, and there was no content. After about 30 pages, he found Miles' household register information. Collected resident information: Moonlight, Michael Myers, background, Moon and Halloween Jack O, lantern type, ultimate demonic man. Basic information: male, height, 206 centimeters, weight, 120 kilograms, religion, Satanism, birthplace, Halloween, Haydenfield Town, Illinois, current residence, 38, Palm Street, Lee Dairy Town, Dry Town, physique monitoring report, frowny face, strength, A+, durability, S, magic power, agility, D can increase to A when possessed by a demon, divinity, D+, special ability, frowny face, evil aura. A, evil aura was an extremely rare attribute. Only demonic men who were truly immersed in slaughter could gather evil aura from one execution to the next. Michael Miles had already completed the 10,000 slaughter in his birthplace, Halloween World, and cultivated to the level of an absolute demonic man. He was invited by the mayor to settle in Drytown. Every time a target is hit, causing damage, evil aura will invade, shown as a moon mark. After 3 hits, the target will be directly executed. Moonlight, born under the moonlight and slaughtered under the moonlight. Miles could perform rapid movement under the moonlight, but at the same time, he was also limited by the moonlight environment. He would only kill at night when the moonlight was shining and would not appear outside of the night. Leather mask. There was a certain level of dependence on masks. Miles could use leather masks to develop all kinds of demonic spawns, helping him collect the extremely rare, perfect skin. Demonic spawns were derived from humans, and their strength was only slightly above humans, far from being comparable to Miles himself. Completely destroying Miles' leather mask would cause him to fall into a weakened state for a certain period of time until the mask was repaired. Inherent equipment cannot be dropped, can only be possessed by the corresponding town's residents. Demonic man's end, table knife, grade, B+ type, killing weapon distance, 1, shortest attack distance. He had been wearing it since he was 6 years old, and it was also the only weapon that could complete the 10,000 slaughter. When used against humans, the damage dealt would be doubled. The blade was stained with the blood of all of Miles' relatives, and it was an indestructible weapon with anti-magic properties. This weapon can also be wrapped in baleful aura, greatly increasing the damage to living creatures. The perfect demonic mask rating, C-type, amplification armor effect, self, and all demonic spawns. The first leather mask was stolen by Miles from a store. Later on, as Miles grew up, he continued to collect skin to supplement and construct the mask. Finally, the perfect mask was created. Wearing the mask, Myers could use fear suppression on the target, reducing the target's various attributes. It would have no effect on targets that were resistant to fear. spawned demonic humans within 100 meters would have a plus 50% overall attribute. At the same time, the mask could completely conceal Miles's aura. Comprehensive resident ranking. Number 14. Han Dong had never expected to receive such comprehensive information about the residents of Wasteland. The system had even given him a book to assist him in this fate event. With such comprehensive information, the follow-up of the bodyguard plan could be carried out further. Nicole, have you become stronger again? Returning to the real world might be of some help to me. Moreover, Lord Messenger, you've given me some supplements from the Scarlet Mountain Villa, allowing me to grow a little. Moreover, there should be a lot of demonic factories like this, right? The factory manager just now didn't seem particularly powerful. Being able to kill him in an instant already exceeded my expectations. However, it won't be that easy to go up against a Wasteland resident. Moreover, the ultimate demonic man we've encountered so far has a rather high ranking in Dry Town. No wonder he's so powerful. Wait, time. Han Dong had actually been keeping an eye on the time. As the ultimate demonic man had been injured by Diana, the system had given him 2 hours of rest. Han Dong looked at the time before leaving the factory. There were still 20 minutes left. However, as a high school teacher, Han Dong had often sat in front of the computer and read documents for hours. He had completely lost track of time when he was reading. There was even one time when he found a very useful doctoral thesis in his office. It was 237 pages long. Han Dong read from the afternoon to the morning of the next day. He was so hungry that his stomach was secreting too much acid, causing him to feel a little pain. Han Dong had also lost track of time when he was reading the household register just now. Coincidentally, it had been exactly 2 hours. Although the two of them were standing under the shade of a tree, Miles was able to reveal himself under the moonlight and slowly approached, using the special characteristic of the mask to conceal his presence. Currently, his 2-meter-tall body was already behind Han Dong. The pressure from such a close distance instantly made Han Dong sweat profusely. He didn't dare to hold back at all. At such a close distance, any form of escape would be killed. There was only one way to survive. Domain of Death. Han Dong took an extremely high risk and forcefully stepped into the domain of death. The ice-cold table knife slashed down at Han Dong's head. However, dense death matter drifted in the air between the slashed flesh. It was unable to touch Han Dong's body. This caused Miles to tilt his head slightly, unable to understand the situation before him. At the same time, Nicole immediately took action. She dealt with this ultimate humanoid demon in the same way she dealt with the factory director. Her right arm disintegrated and turned into more than 10 octopus tentacles. They wrapped around Miles' body, dragging him with brute force, invading him with the tentacles, and corroding him with acid. Nicole, you can't deal with this guy. Use the sealing deep-sea secret technique. Just as Han Dong's telepathic message ended, just as Nicole was about to drag Miles a meter away, Miles's face suddenly changed. In the next second, more than 10 terrifying tentacles that could easily crush all kinds of monsters in the foggy world broke one after another. Nicole was in so much pain that tears welled up in her eyes. She forced herself not to cry out loud. Taking advantage of the fact that the tentacles that had been cut off on the ground hadn't been completely cut off from her body, Nicole hurriedly cast a magic spell. Deep Sea Secret Technique. 8-Claw Prison. The tentacles intertwined with each other, forming a prison cell with tentacles as a fence. The inside of the cell was filled with extremely pressurized deep-sea water, temporarily sealing Miles inside. The next second, Nicole fell into a weakened state due to her serious injuries. The tentacles were very important to Nicole and excessive energy consumption. Han Dong stepped on the yellow sand and carried Nicole away from this place in a princess carry. Chapter 608. Han Dong did not immediately put Nicole back into her cell. His only purpose was to not expose the containment feature in front of anyone. Since the illustration handbook mentioned the mayor in Dry Town had all kinds of strange residents, It was hard to rule out the possibility that there was a certain scribe who was monitoring the situation of every resident behind the scenes. Han Dong would not use any concealment ability if he could. He brought Nicole back to the bathroom in the dormitory and turned the flush to the maximum. A large amount of water was poured onto Nicole's body, and the broken tentacles on her right arm began to slowly heal. The pain was also stopped. Of course, as her body was too weak, it was difficult for her to maintain her human form. Squeak, 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 squeak. Pink tentacles full of suction cups immediately filled the small bathroom. Han Dong was also squeezed inside, and he could only let these harmless, slippery tentacles slide around his body. At this moment, Nicole was shocked. So powerful. My tentacles can only trap you for such a short time? It's only been 2 minutes. Being able to trap him for a period of time is already good enough. According to the introduction in the guide, this ultimate humanoid demon didn't originally belong to Dry Town. Instead, he was promoted from another Destiny world. I estimate that the Destiny world where Michael Miles was originally from is equivalent to a trainee knight. After he killed many apprentice knights that entered this world and ended the world's commoners on a large scale, he obtained a promotion. He had already surpassed the level of his original world and was now the manager of a higher-level Destiny world. It was the mayor of Ridley who found it and allowed it to settle here. Nicole didn't quite understand Han Dong's conjecture about the relationship between worlds, but she was worried about the situation at hand. "Sir, is it coming?" "No. Your seal is very effective. The enemy has temporarily lost their target. Moreover, I didn't have a moonlight mark on my body. As long as I didn't expose myself to the moonlight, I wouldn't be targeted. Compared to Cass, both of them had the moonlight mark, so Miles would probably find trouble with them first. Moreover, the previous injury was caused by Diana. I'll let Cass and the others stall for some time. It's still a little difficult to hold on for 48 hours. After all, the first time he hurt Miles, he was already in a state of demon possession." He recalled the scene a few minutes ago. A thick layer of black gas flowed on the surface of Miles' body. Demonic blood vessels could be seen protruding between the mask and the electrician's uniform. His movements were no longer as sluggish as before, and the pressure from the pursuit was even greater. Most importantly, if they couldn't kill him in one strike, Miles would go into hiding again and appear in an even stronger state 2 hours later. There is a plan, but it will take some time. Let's hope Cass and the others can hold on. Han Dong stared at the perfect facial skin he obtained in the side event. It was a unique leather material, but in the current situation, it had other uses. "Nicole, in the next hour, I need you to cooperate with me to create a prison that can hold this ultimate incubus." At this moment, Nicole, who was squeezed in the bathroom, shot him a pitiful look. "My lord, this water is useless. I want some hybrid demon essence." As Han Dong nodded his head, Nicole immediately pounced on him. Her tongue, which had small suction cups, began sucking wildly in Han Dong's mouth. Nicole immediately recovered from her weakened state. The view changed. Cass and Diana, who had finished drawing the moonlight distribution map of the campus, had returned to the dormitory. Caw-caw, a crow flew in through the window and transmitted the message on behalf of Han Dong. It told the two of them all the information about Miles and the key information about the three-sword execution so that the two of them could delay it for more than an hour. "As long as I get hit 3 times, I'll die immediately?" The pressure of death brought about by the true fate had already made Cass break out in cold sweat. Cass fully carried out the will of a knight and was not afraid of death, but he wanted to go out of the city as a heroic knight and contribute a part of his strength to the cause of human freedom. He did not want to die before going out to battle. He could not die here in such a cowardly manner. Cass stretched out his hand and tightened some of the boxing bandages around his wrist. Since Nicholas said 1 hour, he must be able to give a solution. I must persevere until then. He's downstairs, following Diana's prompt. Cass also came to the window of the dormitory. The scene in front of him was too similar to the scene in the movie Halloween. When Miles locked onto a building, he would stand straight in front of the building with his feet slightly wider than his shoulders. It was as if he was announcing the death of all living creatures in the building in advance. He stepped into the building area with large leather shoes that were size 50. There were still a few people walking in the corridor of the dormitory in the early hours of the morning. If the situation they were about to encounter was in the movie, the crew would need to spend a lot of tomatoes to set it up. It was just as described in the illustrated handbook. It was completely different from the demonic man in the Halloween movie. The Michael Miles here had completed the ultimate slaughter in the other world, and his essence had been sublimated. Such an ultimate demonic man would be quite terrifying even if thrown into the holy city. The lowest level hybrid demons would also be slaughtered in front of him. Tap, tap, tap. With heavy footsteps, Miles was constantly approaching the dormitory where the two of them were. Just as he arrived at the door, crack! A fist wrapped in boxing bandages directly penetrated the wooden door and hit the side of Miles' face. There was a slight explosion in the air. However, such a powerful punch only caused Miles' head to tilt slightly. His feet were firmly embedded in the ground, and his body didn't move at all. After the fist hit, he instantly retracted it. Miles seemed a little unhappy. He directly raised the table knife and slashed at the wooden door of the dormitory. He got hit. Cass's preconceived goal was to grasp the rhythm. He knew very well that this kind of demonic man, who didn't know how to think, would immediately counterattack after taking a punch. By finding the right rhythm, he could achieve a perfect block. The muscles all over Cass' body bulged. He raised a huge shield like a fortress on his left arm and suddenly blocked in front of him. Clang! Although there were traces of the blade slashing on the surface of the heavy shield, it was still far from being able to split open such a unique purple defensive equipment. A perfect block gave a 100% rebound of the impact. At the same time, he activated the special effect of the shield, Cold Winter. A thick layer of ice immediately covered Miles and froze him. At this moment, Diana looked over Cass' head and locked onto the target. Her goal was no longer to kill the enemy. Instead, she stared at Miles' legs. When she used this move, Diana gritted her teeth slightly. Some kind of flowing bone overflowed from her pores and adhered to the surface of her skin. It seemed to be the side effect of using some kind of ability. Her palms bombarded Miles' knees. Crack! The crisp sound of bone breaking could be heard. His knees were damaged. Cass took advantage of the situation and rushed forward. Before the target could thaw, he roared. Huh! He picked up Miles, who had lost his balance due to the rebound, and threw him directly out of the dormitory window. Chapter 609. He tried his best to stall for time. Cass and Diana's coordination was almost perfect. There was only a difference of less than 1 second between their moves. The difference was compensated by the shield's special effect. Let's go. Let's move quickly. The two of them tried to engage in guerrilla warfare in the open space of the campus. The moonlight map that was drawn in advance and the moon's characteristic of not moving for 48 hours allowed them to avoid all the areas illuminated by the moonlight. Just as Cass turned around and walked out of the dorm, a palpitating feeling spread throughout his body. A special sense of danger that only warriors who had experienced hundreds of battles allowed Cass to foresee the imminent fatal danger. He forcefully leaned his center of gravity back and stopped himself from taking a step forward. Shing! The cold gleam of the blade suddenly penetrated the ground. It stood upright where Cass should have landed. A drop of cold sweat dripped down his cheek. If he was a little slower, Cass would have been hit twice. If he was hit again in the follow-up process, he would have died completely in this fate event. He did not expect that Miles, who was thrown out of the window, would defrost in the air. He directly buckled one of his arms on the windowsill of the lower floor. His damaged knee only limited his mobility slightly. He directly launched an attack from the lower floor. Route number 2. He immediately changed to a guerrilla warfare route. Since the target was downstairs, Cass chose to jump up with all his strength. He broke through the ceiling with the shield and went up 1 floor. He quickly arrived at the rooftop area in this way. His gaze locked onto the opposite bank of the artificial lake that was 200 meters away. It was a dense forest that would not be illuminated by the moonlight. Sprint. He used the 50-meter rooftop area to accelerate his sprint. When Cass stepped on the edge of the rooftop, he accumulated his speed and strength at one point and completely exploded. Boom! This step directly caused the edge of the rooftop to collapse. The height of the jump was more than 30 meters, coupled with the initial speed of 20 meters. This jump could be said to be the jump of the century. It directly crossed the artificial lake that was nearly 200 meters wide and landed steadily in the forest on the opposite bank. He looked back. Ultimate human demon Miles just stood straight at the edge of the rooftop. After a while, he turned around and walked back to the dorm building. He successfully bought some time. I really did it. Cass initially thought that he would fall into the artificial lake. Just as he looked around, he found Diana landing in the forest with a relaxed expression. She signaled Cass to continue running with her eyes. He had to keep moving throughout the whole process. Just as the two of them were about to start running through the forest, a voice suddenly rang out. Diana suddenly propped herself up against a tree beside her with one hand. Her stomach curled up slightly as she coughed violently. A thick white mucus was coughed out of his mouth. When it landed on the ground, it immediately solidified into bones. It seemed to be a side effect of forcefully using some kind of ability. Upon closer inspection, the solidified bones on the ground looked more like a ferocious ghost face. Cass sensed the strange aura emitted by the bone and seemed to understand something. Miss Diana, could it be that your goal is a complete hybrid demon? Cough, cough. Diana nodded slightly. Without any help, she had used everything she had to kill a hybrid demon that was completely compatible with her own attributes. Of course, the fact that she was able to find a newborn hybrid demon that was completely compatible with her attributes was also because of the information provided by the Night Watchers. Such a lousy seed seemed to have brought about some strange changes to Diana. The quality of this batch of graduates is too high. Cass couldn't help but sigh. Although he also relied on the hybrid demons to break the seed, it was done with the help of his companions, however. Perhaps Cass's growth rate was lower, but Cass still possessed the uniqueness of the hybrid demon lousy seed. Cass wouldn't use it unless it was a critical period. After all, even if it was only for a short period of time, it was still quite painful. Moreover, there was a certain possibility that it would cause one's consciousness to fall. After a short rest, just as the two of them were about to run in the forest, the moonlight shone directly on the artificial lake, and a wave of ripples spread out. Miles slowly walked out from the bottom of the lake. He had changed from his initial walking posture to a state of running at a medium speed. When Cass turned his head to look at the demi-demon chasing after him, he vaguely saw a virtual image that made Cass's scalp tingle. With Miles as the center, it extended out a scene of countless piles of flesh and blood. The creatures that had been killed by the demi-demon couldn't ascend to heaven or fall to hell. Their souls were entangled in a ball by Miles' baleful energy. They stacked endlessly, just like a human-shaped hell. Asterisk ling ling. Asterisk the door of the cafeteria area was smashed. Cass rolled forward and grabbed a metal dining table that weighed more than 200 kilograms. He twisted his waist and moved his muscles and threw it directly at Miles, who was chasing after him outside the door. Asterisk clang. Asterisk the metal dining table was directly deformed from the impact. However, Miles had no intention of slowing down. In fact, he didn't even want to dodge or extend his hand to block such an ordinary item thrown at him. You should at least block it with your hand. Just as Cass was considering whether to cooperate with Diana and engage in another joint battle, suddenly, a large flock of crows attacked. They crashed through a glass window and crazily rushed into the cafeteria area, surrounding Miles. Baleful energy release. Countless blades flashed around him. More than half of the crows were instantly killed. However, the crows were only used as a distraction. Han Dong, who was disguised as a crow, flew at the back. He took advantage of the interval between the release of baleful energy. He transformed into a human form. The raven staff in his hand temporarily turned into a close combat staff. With the increase in strength brought by the G-virus strengthening, Han Dong, who had spun 3 times in the air, directly hit Miles' head with the staff. He didn't release any death domain to prevent Miles from losing more than 10% of his strength and becoming even more terrifying. This kind of hit was only to attract attention. Asterisk clang. Asterisk when the staff hit, there was a feeling of hitting a gong. Miles' center of gravity didn't change, but his head was directly knocked to 90 degrees. His cervical vertebrae were fractured. Sans seal, he raised his left arm, and a yellow sand coffin with a sacred beetle imprint rose from the ground, temporarily sealing Miles. "Let's go." Han Dong waved his hand, and Cass and Diana immediately followed. So fast. It's twice as fast as I expected. Coincidentally, I found a way to deal with Miles. The 3 of them had just left for a few seconds. Huge leather shoes easily stepped out of the yellow sand. Miles pressed his hands on his head and moved his fractured head back to normal with a click. Cass and Diana could also directly feel the tracking of the baleful energy. Their bodies were covered in cold sweat. When they followed Han Dong to the arranged room, they were slightly surprised. They didn't quite understand how Han Dong was proficient in so many techniques. "Nicholas, how confident are you? This demonic human's weakness is just right for me to use." 70%. Chapter 610. 2 days ago, the headquarters of the Knights of the Secret Words. Captain Hugo led Han Dong to see female corpse, Eminette. Due to the weight problem, Han Dong was not prepared to perform any grafting or upgrade of his left arm for the time being. But perhaps there was a way to use it that did not need to increase the weight. Considering that Han Dong was about to enter the Destiny realm for the first time, Captain Hugo did not want this highly effective labor to disappear just like that, so he nagged a bit more. The difficulty of the Destiny realm is much higher than the Destiny events you have experienced. I believe many people have mentioned this to you before. If you want to survive in the Destiny realm, you want to obtain the rich rewards inside. Most of the time, it does not depend on how strong the individual is. Of course, abnormal characters like Alex, Malone, and the Great Demon are exceptions. Most of the time, what is needed is a kind of prime. The appearance of the Destiny realm is the fire of hope that we humans can continue to survive in the apocalypse. The reason why it is full of difficulties is to allow outstanding humans to obtain the greatest experience in the event, to stimulate the potential hidden in the depths of the soul. It does not have an absolute death situation. Instead, it will give the participants some options of life gates. The life gates of the Destiny events that you novice knights have experienced are very easy to pry into, and there are even many life gates to choose from. Life gate. Han Dong recalled his own Destiny realm experience. The characteristics of the evil spirit in Bewitched, the restrictions on killing, and the hidden cellar in the wilderness. The sewer in The Clown Returns, and the passage connecting to the inner world. Mr. Aha in Ghost Stories, Granny Origin, and so on. The dream setting of the mist, the randomness of the unlucky die, and so on were all part of the life gate setting. Once this was used well, it would be possible to pass the Destiny realm and even obtain the greatest rewards. However, there are very few life gates in the Destiny realm, and they are all hidden. Whether or not you can pry into the life gate is the key to your survival. According to my observation, Nicholas, you have this characteristic, otherwise I would not have directly given you the recommendation letter. Thank you for the reminder, Captain Hugo. Captain Hugo pointed at the female corpse in the middle of the secret room and continued. Although you can't use this female corpse, you should be able to learn some knowledge from it, right? If I can learn some defensive secret arts from it, it might be of great help to me in true fate. The scene cut back. Han Dong led Cass and Diana back to the room that had been set up. It was actually an ancient Egyptian royal secret chamber. There were even some exquisite stone statues of guards standing around. The flat yellow sand walls were also inlaid with gold. Regular black lines were also carved on the wall. The inner chamber was designed in the form of a depression. The trapezoidal depression was filled with strange seawater, and in the deepest part was a unique pharaoh's coffin. This secret chamber was created by Han Dong in half an hour. He told the other two about the plan, especially Cass. In this plan, Cass's role was extremely important and dangerous. After that, they hid in the yellow sand and hid in different areas. Tracing the moonlight mark, Miles, who was in the initial stage of demon possession, arrived here in a short time. Ha! He kicked the door open. Myers tilted his head in confusion as he stared at the pharaoh's secret chamber. The moment Miles stepped on the ground, a black shadow flashed over. Instinctively, he swung the table knife and cut the black shadow in half. However, it was only a pharaoh's guard made of yellow sand that was broken on the ground. Taking advantage of the gap in the attack, Diana immediately followed up. Using a similar move to destroy the target's kneecap, her palms grew gray bones that were full of lines. Crack! She successfully penetrated the bones of the soles of his feet and fixed Miles on the spot with thick gray bone spurs. After doing all this, Diana didn't dare to stay any longer and immediately retreated. Even so, the demonic man's massacre attack still came. Swoosh! The table knife flashed across her cheek, and a strand of hair fell. Diana was so scared that she broke out in cold sweat. At this moment, Cass, who was hiding in the ceiling through the yellow sand, suddenly descended. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Python strangulation. This was a technique that Cass had learned from the Lionheart Knights. Any humanoid life form could use it. He used his arms to perform a strong and powerful triangular strangulation, strangling Miles' neck and holding his head. Then, he used his legs to clamp down on his opponent's two arms. Like a python, he tightly entangled the target. This technique was used to target a target with a larger body and strength than himself, restricting the target's movements and giving his teammates time and opportunity to attack. Lock him. Even though the python strangulation had taken shape, Cass's veins were still bulging, and his muscles were bulging to the maximum. His face was completely red. It was quite difficult. It seemed that Cass had fixed the target. However, in Cass's opinion, it was as if he had fallen into a space where meat was piled up. If he relaxed even a little bit, he would drown in it. Nicholas, hurry up. I can't hold on any longer. Yellow Sand leaped up. Han Dong directly appeared in front of him. Miles wanted to wield the table knife, but his arm was tightly bound by Cass. Han Dong's current state was a little strange. His left hand was pressing hard on the elbow joint of his right arm, and some kind of strip was wriggling under his skin. Close your eyes. According to the previous plan, Cass and Diana both put on protective goggles and closed their eyes. Tentacle isomerization. Splat. 5 gray tentacles dripping with mucus overflowed from Han Dong's palm. The tentacles intertwined and reconstructed, turning into a multi-eyed dog head. Under Han Dong's absolute control, the dog head opened its mouth and bit Miles's perfect white mask. It completely tore and pulled off the mask, but did not hurt Miles's body. According to the instructions in the illustrated handbook, Miles's weakness was the mask. As long as the mask was destroyed, he would fall into a weakened state. While Han Dong was setting up the secret chamber, he was also experimenting with the perfect facial skin that he had obtained from the side mission. He was trying to figure out the most efficient way to destroy the facial skin without harming Miles. In the end, the method he found was the mutated demon tentacles. For a moment, Cass, who was strangling Miles, clearly felt that the target's strength was greatly reduced. Cass' goal was achieved, and he completely collapsed and slid to the ground. Nico, following Han Dong's shout. Immediately, 2 thick octopus tentacles shot out from the sunken pool, wrapped tightly around the weakened ultimate demonic man, and instantly pulled him in. Splash! He sank into the deepest part and was sealed in the coffin at the bottom. Tentacle Sea Prison. Iron Chain Blockade. Death Coffin Seal. Pharaoh's Secret Room. For layers of seals suppressed Miles in the deepest part. Chapter 611. Asterisk click. Everything was done. Han Dong turned around and closed the door, simultaneously separating the room. The secret room that was created using the ancient knowledge of female corpse, Aminette, was completely separated and sunk to the bottom of the school. Layers of yellow sand and rocks were used to reinforce the room. Its position was about 50 meters directly below the artificial lake. Of course, the seal was only the seal. The key to suppressing ultimate humanoid devil was the means Han Dong left in the coffin. There was a tentacle mechanism set up in the coffin. It would destroy Miles' mask when it was recovering. It would let the weakened state extend indefinitely until the moonlight barrier disintegrated on its own. You can all go and rest. I'll be responsible for suppressing it for the rest of the time. Han Dong couldn't let his guard down. He had to monitor the situation in the coffin the whole time. Anything could happen in the Destiny realm. Do we need to change shifts? Cass asked with concern. After all, there were still 40 hours before the moonlight barrier disappeared. Han Dong had to maintain such a high level of concentration for such a long time. It wasn't comfortable. No, only I can do this. You all go and rest. I'll need your help if there's an emergency. All right. Han Dong sat alone by the lake. Since the moonlight didn't disperse, the night wouldn't fade. The students also stayed in the dormitory or sports hall, not daring to come out. The spawned humanoid devils had all been killed by Han Dong, so no one would disturb this process. The plan was a success. Han Dong sat cross-legged by the lake like this. A full 40 hours passed. The moonlight seal shrouding Bates Academy has been removed in an instant. The night finally faded. The moon also disappeared in a short time, replaced by the rising sun from the east. Han Dong's concentration also loosened at this moment. Swish. The lid of the coffin at the bottom was immediately cut to pieces by the table knife. Miles wasn't the only thing that appeared from the inside. There were also countless murderous auras and terrifying virtual images of flesh stacked up. Several layers of barriers couldn't hold this ultimate humanoid devil for long. Splash. The water exploded. A figure suddenly jumped out from the center of the lake and landed in front of the sleepy Han Dong. However, the table knife in his hand didn't swing out. Sunlight shone on the demonic man's enormous body, and the heavy, baleful aura slowly retreated into his body. Miles' body turned from solid to illusory, and just like that, he disappeared in front of Han Dong. Phew! I finally endured it. The pressure of true fate is really great. Han Dong immediately sprawled out on the grass by the lakeside. Fatigue flooded his brain from every corner of his body. His two teammates immediately rushed to the scene, and the moonlight marks on their necks disappeared one after another. The execution effect was not always present. As long as the night passed, the mark would be reset. Diana stared at Han Dong, who was lying on the ground, an indescribable feeling of amazement in her heart. This was the first time she had worked together with Han Dong, and the one who had truly resolved the essence of the danger was Han Dong. She felt that she had contributed less than 10%. Amazing, he gradually understood what Commander Coden meant by Han Dong's survival factor. As for Cass, he was already used to it. He already knew about Han Dong's ability when they had worked together before. Cass, I need to sleep for a while. Go find a hotel nearby and wake me up before nightfall. This security plan has already been completed. We'll travel at night and sleep during the day. After Han Dong gave the task, he fell asleep due to excessive fatigue. In the dream, due to the special brain structure and the development of the mad laughter characteristic, Han Dong's dreamscape had become completely different from that of ordinary people. He was aware of himself in the dreamscape, and he could construct a temporary dreamscape space that he wanted. This way, even when he was sleeping, Han Dong could still make arrangements and think about problems in the dreamscape space, thus maximizing the use of his time. The dreamscape that he had constructed was the private theater of the Scarlet Manor. The undulating piano piece Demon King was being played on the stage by Count himself. Han Dong sat in the first row of the theater's auditorium, admiring Count's solo. Is this the fate space where you humans obtain power? Interesting. This ultimate demonic man is also very interesting. This level of physical strength is comparable to the mature hybrid demon. To survive under the pursuit of such a monster, it's no wonder that weak humans like you can obtain the power to confront us hybrid demons head-on. By the way, this ultimate demonic man's body is very fragrant. Don't you want it? His body is indeed very fragrant, but the combination of flesh and blood, evil aura, and other attributes are not suitable for me. Moreover, once equipped with his body, it is likely to be limited by the moonlight. You're really picky. I'm already beginning to wonder what kind of people are in Dry Town. Count continuously popped out several tunes to express his excitement. It seemed that he was not too upset about his defeat. At present, following Han Dong allowed him to see a lot of new areas that the hybrid demons could not touch. Through the moonlight incident, we can basically conclude that the ability of the hybrid demons is extremely harmful to the lives of Fate. Your strength may be frequently used in the future. Use it as you wish. You can even directly replace my arm like in the night election. All right. Why haven't I seen the resident with the mad laughter attribute that you mentioned? You'll naturally see him when we reach Dry Town. Okay, this scene of hybrid demons dancing around really excites me. By the way, one of your two allies is very interesting. I can clearly feel a type of hybrid demon that has been completely digested but still affects the outside world by participating in substances. Diane, yes, very interesting little girl. She can actually defeat such a rare hybrid demon alone like you. You have to keep an eye on her. This little girl seems to be unable to fully control this power. Once the bones completely overflow, she may die. Count finished his words and continued his performance. Han Dong leaned against the soft chair and closed his eyes to rest. He tried to enter a deeper dream. When he woke up, the setting sun shone into his eyes. Han Dong was sleeping in a relatively simple and smelly off-campus hotel. Let's go. His luck was pretty good. On the side of the road, he met a big boss who was passing by while trying to leave Maine. Through mind control, he obtained a rather good Jeep. Seeing that Han Dong could skillfully drive such a strange vehicle, Diane became more and more curious. When do we depart? The bodyguard hasn't gotten into the car yet. Let's wait for the moon to come out. Since everyone's moonlight mark had disappeared, he could not locate them. If they did not wait for the bodyguard, all their previous efforts would be in vain. Of course, if it was an ordinary person, they would definitely be willing to get rid of the terrifying hybrid demons. However, Han Dong was not willing to do so. This ultimate humanoid demon, whose brain wasn't particularly useful but was terrifyingly powerful, was a high-quality tool. Chapter 612. From dusk to the appearance of the moon, it would take another 1 to 2 hours. Han Dong drove the car until he was 1 kilometer away from the school. He came to a restaurant in the suburban town, Mr. Jed Spaghetti. Humans were made of iron, and rice was made of steel. Han Dong hadn't eaten for 2 days. Even though he had stimulated his cells to divide and devour himself, his total energy was decreasing. Since he had extra time, he quickly ate something. Boss, 3 servings of tomato beef spaghetti, 2 servings of fried rice with salmon roe, a whole roast chicken, and a vegetable salad. Take them all. The only boss left in the restaurant, who had a severely receding hairline, didn't expect the 3 young men to eat so much. Okay, I'm the only one working here. It might take half an hour. Hurry up, we're in a hurry. Han Dong took out a bill with Benjamin Franklin printed on it. There were many bills like this in the Mercedes-Benz. The 3 of them sat down in the spacious restaurant. While waiting for the food to be prepared, Cass went to the convenience store next door to buy some necessary supplies, such as a big bucket of water, spare gasoline, and a detailed map of Maine. Dry Town is only 100 kilometers away from here. However, it's a 200-kilometer detour. Plus, many of the national highways and highways to Dry Town are blocked. We might have to pass through some small rural roads. It'll take 2 to 3 days to get to Dry Town. If there are any unusual events or clues along the way, we'll extend the time appropriately. Okay. Also, There's a problem with your weapon. We'll try our best to replenish it for you through the rewards from the side missions before we get to Dry Town. Cass wasn't a boxer. The destruction of the stone pig sword was a bigger loss. No one would have thought that such an excellent weapon would be destroyed by the ultimate incubus so easily. The boss was still preparing the food. Ring, 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 the doorbell rang. Another customer had arrived. The boss, who was sweating profusely, carried the packaged spaghetti and fried rice in his hands. Only a roast chicken that hadn't been cut was left unpacked. He signaled Han Dong and the others to wait for a while. The customer who came in was similar to a homeless person. The boss didn't mind. He seemed to have served many homeless people. "What would you like to eat?" There was no response. The customer just pointed at the cheapest vegetarian pasta on the menu and casually threw a dirty coin on the counter. After all, it was still money. The boss put it all into the drawer. If he could raise enough money, he would be able to bring his family to settle down in other provinces and counties after the relocation permit was obtained. The guest dressed as a tramp didn't say a word the entire time. He chose to sit opposite of Han Dong and the others. His hoodie and a dirty cap covered his face completely. Creak, creak, creak while waiting for the meal. A cockroach crawled out from the customer's sleeve. Before the cockroach could crawl half a meter away, the tramp caught it between his fingers and tossed it into his mouth. In a quiet restaurant, the sound of the cockroach's shell being crushed by teeth was exceptionally clear. A short while later, the boss came over with a big bag of food. Inside the bag was a roast chicken that had been cut into small pieces. The aroma of the roast chicken seeped out from the paper bag that had never been completely sealed. Just as the boss passed by the homeless man, perhaps attracted by the smell, the homeless man suddenly reached out and grabbed the roast chicken. Together with the bag, he stuffed it into his mouth. Some of the roast chicken pieces that couldn't be stuffed into his mouth fell to the ground. When the boss saw this, he first apologized to Han Dong at the next table. "I'm sorry. I'll make another one for you right away." "It's okay. We don't want a roast chicken. We're in a hurry." "That won't do. It'll be quick. The stove is now at the highest temperature. It can be done in 10 minutes. The boss insisted on making another roast chicken. He trotted back to the back kitchen and put the roast chicken back into the oven. Holding an iron rod, he angrily returned to the restaurant. He was obviously angry because the roast chicken had been snatched by the homeless man. He pointed the iron rod at the homeless man. "I'm already being very nice to you by letting you in for a meal. Get out of here." The homeless man was indifferent to the boss's scolding. He even reached out to pick up the pieces of meat that had fallen to the ground and ate with relish. The boss, who was furious, directly picked up the iron rod in his hand and suddenly swung it at the homeless man's back. The sound of some kind of bone being broken was heard. It seemed that the spine was broken. The boss didn't use all his strength. This level of knocking was not enough to break the spine at all. At the same time, the piece of roast chicken that had just been eaten by the homeless man was also knocked out by the rod. The angry homeless man suddenly tilted his head. He took off his hood. A terrifying face covered with cockroaches and watermelon worms was revealed. His flesh was almost completely eaten, and only a few muscle threads were left on his face. At the same time, the spine that was broken by the boss suddenly elongated. The homeless man, who was originally only the height of an ordinary person, was elongated to a length of 4 meters. The growth area was a pure white spine and a curved, spike-shaped skeleton. They carried countless moist insects and tried to swallow the restaurant owner alive. The moment they approached the boss, the homeless man's movement stopped. His skull and heart were all destroyed. He dragged his spine, which was several meters long, and fell heavily to the ground. The moist worms that crawled all over his body also dispersed. He was dead. It was not done by Han Dong and the others. The one who did all this was the restaurant owner, who was forced to protect himself. In addition to the initial iron rod, there was also a butcher knife in the boss's hand. Staring at the homeless man on the ground who did not have much meat, the boss could not help but sigh. "Sigh. There's no meat left. I can only use it to make soup." That's right. The reason why the homeless man snatched Han Dong and the others' packed food, was because the roast chicken was not the roast chicken. That was because the roast chicken in the bag was not actually chicken, but a type of meat that homeless people liked very much. The shop itself was not an ordinary shop. The boss then turned to look at Han Dong and the others and said helplessly, "I originally planned to wait for you to eat and drink to your heart's content before processing you into good meat. Since you've seen my true colors in advance, I can only apologize." At some point in time, the restaurant's door had been blocked by more than 10 hanging pork. There was no way to escape. The owner had a smile on his face as he slowly approached the three young men. The boss had already turned more than 100 diners into food for the restaurant. Just as the boss was about to approach, Han Dong tilted his head and looked at the ray of moonlight shining into the restaurant. He frowned slightly. "Boss, I said that we were in a hurry. This is not going to be easy." "What's not easy? Don't worry, it'll be over soon. My knife skills are very good." Just as the boss was about to step forward, he sensed a strange aura appear in his restaurant. It seemed to be standing behind him. He turned around. He suddenly swung the butcher knife in his hand. Clang! Due to the collision with a hard object, the blade was sent flying. What the boss saw was a terrifying existence who was 2 meters tall and wearing a white leather mask. The blade flashed. The boss only felt that his neck was quite cool. Then, his vision fell rapidly, and his head fell to the ground alone. The last thing he saw was a size 50 leather shoe falling from above his head. Splat! "Thank you, bodyguard. Let's go." Han Dong had already slipped out of the restaurant at the first moment. Although they did not manage to finish their meal, they verified the usefulness of bodyguards. Chapter 613. State of Maine. It was the most remote state in the United States, mainly consisting of highlands and hills. Its development was relatively backward, and the roads were winding and rugged. When a main road was completely closed, it was difficult to go to Dry Town from the outside, where disappearances occurred frequently. It wasn't just Han Dong who had to take a long detour. It was the same for the other team. In Bangor City, a small bus drove out. The driver in charge of driving had 3 silver needles inserted in the back of his head. His brain was completely affected by the silver needles and was under someone's absolute control. 4 black-haired, brown-eyed Asians sat in the bus. One of them was a young man who was nearly 2 meters tall, with bronze skin and a strong body. He was holding a fragrant fried chicken breast burger in his hand. At the same time, there were more than 50 burgers piled on the seat in front of him, most of which were fried chicken burgers. The fried chicken from abroad is still the best. Every time I come to the Destiny space, I have to eat enough. Gong Sun Hao, eat less junk food. Captain, don't worry. I won't get sick no matter what I eat. Only when I'm full will I have the strength to fight. Besides, Captain, didn't you already say that? It's not us who caused the chaos in the clown's resurrection. Inner part. It's another team. If there's a strong person in their team, I can fight with all my strength. As he spoke, he swallowed half of the burger. This young man who loved fried chicken burgers was called Gong Sun Hao, and he was from Dragon City. As for the captain he mentioned, he was a young man with a small braid and a dragon-patterned sword on his waist. No matter how confident Gong Sun Hao was, he still didn't dare to act rashly in front of the captain. The captain was also from Dragon City, and his name was Hua Zipping. At this time, in the front seat of the bus, a young man with squinted eyes who had his ear pressed against the glass window suddenly gave an important message. "Captain, there's a noise in the valley tunnel ahead. If we take a detour, we may be delayed for 5 hours. I suggest we take a detour. The noise is louder than before, and in a closed area like the tunnel, we are quite passive." The young man with squinted eyes and a thin figure was called Yu Wu. Captain Zipping would usually listen to the information and judgment he gave. "Well, let's take a detour. Tao Tao, let's take the right road." "Yes, Captain." The only woman in the team, Ma Tao Tao, had a figure that was not inferior to Western women. Her eyebrows were like ink paintings, and her face was like peach petals. This kind of appearance would often trigger some special quests for the team in the Destiny world, which would also bring some small troubles. Ma Tao Tao gently moved her fingers. A few meters away, the silver needle stuck in the driver's head also trembled slightly. Then, he turned the steering wheel and turned right at the next intersection. However, Yu Wu, who was leaning against the car window and listening to the sound outside, looked troubled. Sister Tao Tao, get the driver to turn around. Something's wrong. Oh, the minibus turned around and then made several more turns. But in the end, it stopped in front of a long and dark tunnel at the bottom of the mountain. This was the strange tunnel that Yu Wu had heard beforehand. No matter how he changed his path, he would still end up at the entrance of the tunnel, unable to leave. Yu Wu, I can even fool your hearing? It can't be. Perhaps it has something to do with the puppet we killed when we left the city? My auditory information might have been leaked out by him in a special way, allowing a higher existence in the tunnel to know about it. He purposely released a large amount of noise in advance so that I would focus all my attention on the problem of the tunnel. Thus, I would ignore the problem of ghosts going around in circles. After all, this is true fate. In such a difficult dungeon, there are many situations that we can't avoid. Let's go in. Yu Wu, try not to make such a mistake again. Hearing the captain's words, a drop of sweat flowed down Yu Wu's forehead. He quickly nodded. The minibus drove into the tunnel. It was not completely dark. Some of the lights were still on. The whole tunnel presented a kind of intermittent tunnel, with sections of light and darkness. As the minibus moved forward, the darkness and light kept alternating, until a white-haired old woman appeared on the seat. She looked like a human, but her movements were like a doll. She reached out and caressed the doll in her arms. The doll's attire was exactly the same as Pennywise the clown. Resident, doll's daughter, Mary Shaw, has descended. Mount Herbo Tunnel has been sealed. Sealing time, 48 hours. There is only one hidden path in the tunnel that can lead to a safe area outside. Killing Mary Shaw can also remove the seal of the tunnel in advance. Resident? Could it be an existence on the same level as the clown? In the previous incident, they did not have a deep understanding of the sewers and the clown's nature. They did not know the specific concept of dry town. However, the pressure brought by this old woman was not small at all. They naturally knew that the resident was the key. The old woman's chin, which was like a puppet structure, suddenly loosened and fell. From inside, a withered old tongue slowly crawled out and made a sound that made everyone in the minibus uncomfortable. You have destroyed my puppet, so I have to replace it with your own body. Captain Hua Zipping spoke in fluent English. Excuse me, is the doll in your hand Pennywise? After the question was asked, the old woman seemed to be interested. 3 withered tongues came out from her mouth and twined in the air. You actually know this clown. Looks like you're very interesting. We once killed him in Dry Town. Ha ha! This is the funniest joke I've ever heard. First of all, the Dry Town you speak of is just a fake town that Pennywise replicated. Also, this clown gave the mayor a headache. Happy to be killed by you. I'm currently studying Pennywise's body structure to find a way to kill him. Since you have met Pennywise in the fake Dry Town and even killed each other, you should have some interesting information in your heads, right? All of a sudden, 4 threads, stronger than steel, shot out from the old woman's head, trying to control the 4 people in the minibus. Buzz! The sword was unsheathed. The puppet threads and the old woman's head were cut open. However, this kind of killing seemed to have triggered a mechanism in the self-made clown doll. Well, you heard it. Captain, let's jump out of the minibus. Captain Hua Zipping held Ma Tao Tao with one hand. Gong Sun Hao, who had the strongest physique, immediately rushed forward and held Wu Yu, who had average stamina. The 4 of them jumped out of the minibus at the same time. Boom! A powerful explosion of dark element directly engulfed the entire minibus. The residents, the fake Dry Town, the clown that troubled the mayor. The amount of information has increased. Maybe we can get information about the clown in advance here. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.